You can run, but you can't hide forever, you little reed brat. If you've got the guts, just stay holed up in there like a chicken for the rest of your life. I'll be right here waiting, and the second you step out, I'm not letting you off the hook." Caleb Harlan had yelled himself hoarse and kicked at the gate until he was wiped out, but he hadn't caught even a glimpse of Sophia. He was fuming, leaning against his car hood, pulling a cigarette from his pack and lighting up, determined to stick it out no matter what. Little did he know, Sophia wasn't staying inside because she was scared of him. She was treating him like a total clown, not worth her time. If she actually took him seriously, well, his days would be numbered. He was the type who wouldn't learn until it was too late, completely clueless that Sophia was someone you absolutely didn't mess with. He was halfway through his smoke when the gate cracked open, just a sliver. Someone stepped out, and then it shut tight again. Caleb. Damn, that was too quick. He hadn't even reacted in time. Missed his chance to barge in. But hey, at least his big talk had spooked them enough to send someone out to negotiate. Under the streetlight, Caleb sized up the guy, and his mood soured even more. Why'd they send some wet-behind-the-ears kid to talk to him? Clearly, they weren't taking him seriously. As he eyed the newcomer, the kid was checking him out too, sizing him up quietly. Then, with an arrogant swagger, the kid walked right over. Caleb smirked inwardly, wondering what this punk was going to say. But what happened next left him totally baffled. The kid, who looked a bit too soft and pretty for a guy, yanked open the door to Caleb's prized Lamborghini and plopped right into the passenger seat like he owned it. Caleb loved that car like it was his wife. No one else was allowed to even touch it, let alone sit in it. Watching his wife being violated right in front of him, Caleb was so stunned he forgot to react. Just then, the kid, oblivious to his impending doom, shot him an annoyed glare. "What are you staring at? Hurry up and drive. Take me to my hotel." Caleb. The kid's utter confidence sent him into a spiral of existential doubt. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? It took him a full 3 seconds to answer each question. Right. I'm Caleb Harlan, the respected second young master of the Harlan family. I came back to the States and found everything turned upside down. That little brat who refuses to admit she's a Harlan, and whom the family doesn't claim, either, somehow used some dirty, low-class tricks to seize control of the family's finances. She slashed my allowance, and my quality of life has fallen off a cliff. Everyone else has been brainwashed by her, too cowardly to fight back, just letting her walk all over them. Well, not me. I have to teach that brat a lesson, show her that not everyone is so easily fooled. Inside the surveillance room, Alex Turner stared at the monitor in disbelief as the kid impatiently urged Caleb to start the car. "Wait, what? This guy, he's pretending to be me," he exclaimed, having just heard the bizarre truth from Sophia. Sophia had been having people search for him. Then, by a twist of fate, she had spotted him herself on the street one day while he was on his way to a part-time job. Even though years had passed and he had changed, she'd recognized him instantly. However, some of the people she had hired didn't know she'd already found him. Driven by greed, they had cooked up a scheme, a classic switcheroo. All Sophia had been able to provide was a vague description. The person she was looking for was exceptionally handsome. She didn't know his name or where he lived, which made the risk of being caught quite low. So they found a fake and presented him to Sophia, claiming he was the one. Sophia's status and wealth were a massive temptation. A few crumbs from her table were enough to make people flock to her, let alone someone she considered important. They figured she would cherish the person she had spent so much effort finding, showering him with wealth and luxury. Once the boy was in her favor, the people behind him would profit immensely. It was a one-person rises, the whole village prospers kind of deal. So, when Sophia had asked the boy how his life had been, he intentionally spun a sob story, hoping she would improve his family's living conditions and compensate him for his years of suffering. Alex was dumbfounded. "It's a good thing you found me first, Sophie. Otherwise, you would have been tricked by these crooks." Sophia shook her head and looked at him deeply, as if she could never get enough of the sight. "They could never have tricked me. You don't understand. Even if you looked completely different, I would have known it was you just by instinct." Alex met her gaze, stunned. An indescribable feeling spread through his chest. He couldn't imagine that while he was growing up loved by his parents, busy with his simple life of school and home, a girl had been quietly thinking of him, searching for him for years. To be missed by someone other than family was a startling, humbling feeling. "I'm so glad I found you, otherwise." Sophia didn't finish the sentence, but she completed it in her heart. "Otherwise, what would have been the point of my life? I looked glamorous on the outside, but I was just a walking corpse, hollow and tasteless, with nothing to live for." Suddenly, the scene on the monitor erupted. Caleb's famously slow reaction time finally caught up to his shock. He saw the kid's bossiness as a blatant provocation and humiliation. Enraged, he lunged forward, roughly yanking the boy out of the passenger seat and kicking him to the ground. "Are you fucking looking to die?" The boy, completely bewildered, curled up on the ground, shielding his head and screaming for mercy. One was a spoiled rich kid looking for trouble. The other was a greedy, delusional scammer. Put them together, and what do you get? A spectacular dog-eat-dog fight. Alex watched Sophia, who was propping her chin in her hands, utterly engrossed in the screen. He couldn't help but smile. No matter how calculating she was in the outside world, she was still young. At times, a flicker of childlike innocence would emerge, making her seem all the more precious and pure. The boy was helpless against Caleb's furious assault. Finally, Caleb grabbed him by the collar, lifting him like a baby chick. Trembling, the boy stammered, Aren't you the driver Sophie sent for me?" The volatile Caleb Harlan became even more volatile. He, who was always surrounded by an entourage, who considered himself to possess an air of kingly dominance, was now being called a driver. This was the ultimate insult. He slugged the kid squarely in the face. Amidst the boy's blood-curdling screams as his nose gushed blood, Caleb roared through clenched teeth, his face ashen. "Are you fucking blind? Do I look like a driver to you?" The boy, bruised and bloodied, shivered like a dry leaf in an autumn wind. His mind, already a confused mess, was now spinning with questions. Who is this guy? Who is the driver Sophie was supposed to send? What the hell is going on? Can someone please tell me? Wah, the world outside is too scary. I want to go home to my mommy. This was not at all how he had imagined things would go. Initially, he had approached this with the mindset of becoming a sugar baby. If women could find sugar daddies, why couldn't men? The young heiress was looking for someone incredibly important to her, and he fit the general description of handsome and refined. He could totally take that person's place and change his life. But he hadn't expected the richest heiress in Seattle to be so young and beautiful, like a fairy. He'd fallen for her at first sight and had already picked out names for their future children. What he hadn't liked, however, was that he wasn't asked to stay the night. Later, a servant had told him that Miss Sophia had arranged everything for him, adding meaningfully, "Miss Sophia has business to attend to. You should head out first." The servant's near-fawning respect had soothed his ego. How could my dear Sophie possibly let me suffer? I'm the one she worked so hard to find. He assumed she was just too shy to be affectionate with him there, and was planning a romantic rendezvous at some scenic spot. Overjoyed, he had naturally mistaken the man waiting outside, Caleb Harlan, for his chauffeur. At first glance, he had thought, this driver looks pretty intense, not much like a driver. Turns out he really wasn't. A police car pulled up, and two officers jumped out, cuffing the cursing Caleb and the blubbering mess of a scammer and hauling them away. Who called the cops? The answer was obvious. The aggressor would pay the legal price for his temper, and the shameless scammer would pay a painful price of his own. He might not lose his life, but he'd be left half dead. Without knowing it, they had become toys for Sophia's amusement. Never mess with a woman, especially a woman like Sophia Reed. If you were foolish enough to cross her, you might not even know how you died. Sophia lost interest, sighing with disappointment. Well, that wasn't very exciting. What do you think, husband? Alex reached out and ruffled her soft hair. It felt nice. He figured her staying out all night was related to this. Sophie, what are you gonna do about those people? Being manipulated couldn't feel good, especially for someone like Sophia who needed to be in control. She must be furious. Sophia's smile was playful. Guess what the relationship is between the scammer and the person who pushed him forward? Alex's eyes widened. Don't tell me. My husband is so smart. They're mother and son, Sophia said, her tone chilly. She used my trust in her to pull something like this behind my back. Is that ridiculous woman treating me like an idiot? Once bitten, twice shy, Sophie. Alex comforted her. Just stay away from people like that from now on. Sophia gave him a strange look. Alex, did he say something wrong? After staring at him for a moment, Sophia reached out and touched his face. Her hand was cool in the summer heat, leaving a tingling sensation on his skin. She sighed. Husband, how can you be so kind? You'll be taken advantage of if you're too kind. Alex couldn't help but wonder again what she had been through. He couldn't guess the details of her past, but he could feel that the woman who tried to pass off her son as him was in for a world of trouble. Sophia held a grudge. Staying away was definitely not her style. He then heard her say, but you don't have to worry, husband. You just need to be happy and be yourself every day. As long as I'm here, no one can bully you. Honestly, hearing that made Alex feel a strange mix of amusement and a weird kind of touched, Be happy and be myself? Easy to say, hard to do. Wasn't she the first person to stop him from being himself? Sophie, have you slept at all since last night? It's getting late. His words seemed to have a hypnotic effect. 1 second she was full of energy. The next she let out a huge yawn. Her eyes were half closed, her thick lashes drooping listlessly. She looked utterly exhausted. Whatever had kept her out all night must have been important. And today she brought back a scammer. Why bring him back knowing he was a fake? Did she know that idiot from the Harlan family would show up? And she deliberately sent the scammer out to stage this little drama for her own entertainment? She was brilliant, but she couldn't predict the future. Alex couldn't figure her out, so he stopped trying. Sophia's energy deflated like a punctured tire. It looked like she could fall asleep at any second. With her last ounce of willpower, she wrapped her arms around his neck, murmuring against his ear, "Husband, carry me." She wasn't particularly tall or short, and she was incredibly light. Alex lifted her as easily as if she were a kitten. His mind inexplicably flashed back to what his mother had said to Sophia last night. "Honey, you should eat more. You'd look even prettier with a little more weight on you." It was true. She was a bit too thin. A little softer would be nice. They took the elevator upstairs, and Alex had a moment of internal conflict. Should he take her to her room or his? In the end, his feet carried him firmly toward his own room. Sophia clung to his arm like a stubborn child, wanting to sleep in his arms all night. The last shred of reason, not yet consumed by sleepiness, made her realize that while she would be comfortable, it would be difficult for him. She buried her head in the crook of his neck, nuzzling him. "Husband," she mumbled, "I'm going to take a shower first." Watching her stumble toward the bathroom, yawning, Alex was genuinely afraid she might fall asleep mid-shower. While Sophia was in the shower, Alex waited outside, his heart pounding with anxiety. What if she really did fall asleep in there? Sophia always insisted she would marry him and no one else, and they had progressed to sharing a bed, but it felt more like her own wishful thinking. Raised with his parents' traditional values, Alex still held a firm belief in the line between men and women before marriage. If Sophia fell asleep in the shower, he didn't know if he should rush in and carry her out. Thankfully, she didn't. She emerged with her hair soaking wet, her expression calm, the sleepiness faded. "Husband, I'm done. Your turn." Alex stared at her dripping hair and nodded. When he came out of the bathroom, enveloped in steam, he found her hair was still dripping wet. She was sitting silently on the bed, her long, wet hair soaking a large patch of her cotton pajamas. She was so lost in thought she didn't even notice him approach. Alex switched on the hairdryer and gently began to dry her hair. Sophia snapped back to reality, slightly startled. Then she simply wrapped her arms around his waist, pressed her face against his torso, and closed her eyes, letting him work. Her hair was slightly wavy and incredibly soft, tangling gently around his fingers, a stark contrast to her usually steely personality. His mother, Emily, didn't have a daughter, but her sweet-natured son gave her all the pampering a daughter would. At home, Alex was almost always the one to dry his mother's hair, a habit that had unexpectedly made him an expert. "All done," Alex said, putting down the hairdryer and running his hand through her now fluffy, warm hair. "It's dry. Get some sleep." Sophia murmured, uncharacteristically obedient. She lay down, but her eyes followed him intently as he carefully coiled the hairdryer cord and put it away. As he walked back, he smiled. "Why aren't you sleeping? Did the shower wake you up?" Sophia couldn't tear her eyes away from him. "Alex," she whispered, as if in a dream, "why are you so good to me?" The devotion in her eyes was so thick it was almost suffocating, placing a strange pressure on Alex. He had never felt so important to anyone, not even his parents. Of course, that wasn't to say he wasn't important to them. The bond between parent and child is innate. But as children grow up, parents, however reluctant, eventually learn to let go. His importance to Sophia, however, was something else entirely, forged without blood ties, yet seemingly unbreakable. It gave him the dizzying illusion that he was her entire world. Sophia seemed troubled. "You're too good. So good that sometimes I'm terrified." "Why?" "I'm scared. Scared that the you I see now is just a shadow in my dream. I don't dare to sleep because I'm afraid you'll be gone when I wake up." Alex was taken aback. A pang of something sharp and aching twisted in his chest. How starved for affection must she have been to cling so desperately to a brief moment of kindness from him all these years? She was brilliant and beautiful, the kind of daughter any parent would dream of. She wasn't born from a rock. How could she have grown up without anyone to love her? But if she had been loved, she wouldn't be so obsessive today. The enigmatic Sophia, with her enigmatic past. Driven by an overwhelming wave of protectiveness, Alex leaned down, looked her straight in the eye, and made a solemn promise, his voice filled with a sincerity that surprised even himself. "Don't worry. Unless you tell me to leave, I will never leave you." Sophia smiled, revealing a few pearly white teeth. "I'll never tell you to leave." The air conditioning was a bit chilly. Alex pulled a blanket over her, covering her bare shoulders, and adjusted the thermostat to a comfortable sleeping temperature before lying down beside her. The moment he settled, she snuggled into his arms, wrapped her arms around his waist, and closed her eyes contentedly. 2 seconds later, her eyes snapped open again. "What's wrong?" Sophia propped herself up on her elbow. Her long hair cascaded down, tickling his face. She had a look of "how could I forget?" annoyance. "Were your parents happy with the house?" Alex gently pressed her shoulder, guiding her back into his embrace. Her pajama collar was askew, and his hand landed half on the fabric and half on her skin. He quickly pulled his hand away, the smooth warmth of her skin lingering on his palm. "They were happy," he said, thinking that happy was an understatement. His mom was so happy, she was practically speechless. Sophia let out a yawn but stubbornly kept her eyes open, which were now watering from the effort. "The next time I open my eyes, you'll still be here, right?" Alex replied. Realizing the ambiguity in his answer, he corrected himself. "Yes, I'll be here." Sophia smiled, satisfied. She propped herself up again and left a soft kiss on his lips. "Good night." Alex returned the sentiment. "Good night." In the darkness, Sophia's breathing evened out. She was asleep. Listening to her soft breaths, Alex couldn't sleep. It wasn't because he had a beautiful woman in his arms and his mind was wandering. He didn't even realize it himself. But his perspective had shifted. He had moved beyond a simple physical attraction and evolved to something more transcendent. In his subconscious, Sophia was like a younger sister who needed to be cared for and protected, as fragile as a flower bud swaying in the wind, and he instinctively wanted to shield her, just like he did that summer so many years ago. His mind raced, jumping from Sophia's past to his own future. If he didn't accomplish something, it felt like he would be wasting this second chance at life. Sophia had money and was willing to spend it on him and his parents, but he didn't truly want to be a kept man. He mentally reviewed the opportunities he knew were coming, determined to seize the initiative and build something of his own. Having a clear plan for his next steps brought a sense of calm and purpose. Sleepiness finally washed over him, pulling him swiftly into a dream. When he opened his eyes again, the space beside him was empty. For a disoriented moment, Alex sat up, rubbing his eyes. It took him a while to confirm that yes, Sophia had indeed slept in his arms last night. He had slept so soundly, he hadn't even noticed when she got up. When Alex found Sophia, the scene downstairs made him stop in his tracks. "Miss Sophia, the doctor said his leg is broken. It's serious. He needs surgery right away, or he'll have a permanent disability." A middle-aged woman, dripping with gold jewelry and designer brands, was collapsed at Sophia's feet, sobbing hysterically. Sophia calmly took a sip of her morning tea. Looking down at the tear-streaked woman, she said nonchalantly, "It's just a broken leg. It's not like he's dying. What's all the crying about? Any other injuries besides the leg?" The woman looked up, bewildered. "Just a broken leg?" The dismissive tone made her deeply uncomfortable, but she didn't dare show it. "A broken rib. And his face. His nose is broken, and his face is all cut up. He'll need plastic surgery later, or he'll be disfigured." "Oh, is that all?" Sophia clicked her tongue, sounding genuinely disappointed. Her coldness was terrifying. The woman's sobs choked in her throat. She stared up in disbelief at Sophia's indifferent expression. She stammered, Miss Sophia, the doctor said if he doesn't have surgery immediately, he'll be disabled. He'll be a cripple for life." Sophia's expression didn't change. "I'm not deaf. I heard you." At this moment, she was completely unreadable, nothing like an 18-year-old girl. This was the side of her that made Alex feel the most distance. It was hard to imagine that this aloof, commanding young woman had slept so peacefully in his arms just last night. The woman pressed on. "So, should we tell the doctors to schedule the surgery?" Sophia lazily raised an eyelid, tossing the question back at her. "What do you think?" Her vague, unhurried attitude left the woman completely baffled. But the situation was urgent, and she had no time to ponder. She blurted out, "Of course we should get him in his surgery right away." Sophia continued to sip her tea elegantly, a stark contrast to the woman's frantic desperation. "Then go tell the doctors." "I'm not a doctor." The woman suspected she was being too subtle for the sheltered heiress. Miss Sophia, the hospital needs a $20,000 deposit for the surgery. Sophia remained perfectly composed, not even blinking. Then go pay it. The woman was overjoyed. She scrambled to her feet and was about to leave when she remembered something. She turned back, looking at Sophia with pleading eyes. Miss Sophia, the 20 grand. You haven't given it to me yet. Sophia looked at her with a half smile. That's strange. You're paying for your own son's medical bills. Why are you asking me for money? Alex stroked his chin. He had guessed from the start that the woman was the scammer's mother. Now it was confirmed. Other people screwed over their fathers, but she screwed over her own son, personally pushing him in front of Sophia. The great wealth she had imagined didn't materialize. Instead, she got her son a broken leg and a ruined face. A perfect real-life drama of instant karma. The middle-aged woman froze, her expression like a lake flash frozen by a bitter north wind. After a long moment, her face began to crumble into fear. But she hadn't given up all hope. Her eyes darted around as she feigned ignorance. Miss Sophia, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Didn't you say you were looking for someone important to you? I just found someone who matched your description. But yesterday he was inexplicably beaten up at your gate, and now he needs emergency surgery. You can't just abandon him. A cold, mocking smile appeared on Sophia's face. Mrs. Zimmerman, look me in the eye and tell me, have I not treated you well all these years? Being called Mrs. Zimmerman and stared at so intensely made the woman's scalp tingle. Fear and regret flooded her, coursing through her veins until her body began to shake uncontrollably. Miss Sophia, I was wrong. Please forgive me this one time. It was a moment of weakness. I just like you so much, Miss Sophia. I wasn't satisfied with our current relationship. I wanted us to be closer, like family. That's why. It was my fault, but my son is innocent. Miss Sophia, I'm begging you. Can you just give me? No. Lend me $20,000 so my son can have his surgery. I promise I'll pay you back with interest. Sophia remained silent, a faint smile playing on her lips. It made her look ethereal, if you ignored the playful glint in her eyes. What a pity, Sophia said, her voice soft but her words chilling. You don't know me very well. She smiled elegantly. Your son's leg was broken because of you, understand? Mrs. Zimmerman shuddered violently. Her son was in agony at the hospital, and they'd had to give him a sedative. The hospital had given her an ultimatum: come up with the surgery fee, or they would move on to the next patient. Sophia was right about one thing. She had been more than generous to Mrs. Zimmerman. Financially, she was always lavish. Without providing any real value, Mrs. Zimmerman received hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. With that money, she had quit her old housekeeping job, and her whole family lived comfortably without lifting a finger. Leaning on Sophia's support, she had spent recklessly. When she got the news, she was in the middle of an all-night mahjong game with her friends. She had no savings. Now, with her son in the hospital, she couldn't even come up with 20 grand. In her panic, she had rushed over to demand money, cursing the maniac who had beaten her son, but she hadn't stopped to think why her son would be attacked outside the Reed estate. She looked at Sophia in terror. Sophia returned her gaze with an innocent smile. Mrs. Zimmerman's mind went blank, and a cold sweat broke out on her forehead. She belatedly realized that Miss Sophia had known from the very beginning that the boy was an imposter. But instead of exposing him, she had. Sophia set down her exquisite jade teacup and lazily beckoned. Charles Harrington stepped forward and tossed a ledger in front of Mrs. Zimmerman, his face expressionless. Your son isn't going to die anytime soon. There's no rush. First, take a look at this ledger. It details all the assets you've received from the Reed family over the years. The cash value of every item has been calculated. Return every last cent, and Miss Sophia will be magnanimous and let you off the hook. Magnanimous? Mrs. Zimmerman couldn't even afford her son's surgery. How could she possibly repay Sophia? She could sell herself 100 times over and still not have enough. Mrs. Zimmerman's vision went black, and she fainted. In Sophia's presence, no one did anything without her permission, including passing out. Just as Mrs. Zimmerman's face went white and she was about to collapse, Sophia's voice drifted over coolly. If you dirty my floor, that'll be $1 million in damages. Mrs. Zimmerman's eyes shot open, and she forced herself to stay conscious. The sight was so absurd that Alex had to suppress a laugh, feeling a grim satisfaction. The world was full of people like Mrs. Zimmerman, who outsmarted themselves and were ultimately consumed by their own greed. It was karma. When it came to dealing with villains, Sophia's methods were effortless. She meant what she said. If she demanded repayment, Mrs. Zimmerman would have to return every penny, unless she died. And even then, Sophia probably wouldn't let her die until the debt was settled. This was the price for underestimating Sophia Reed. Losing interest, Sophia stood up, not even glancing at the pathetic woman on the floor, and turned to leave. Charles Harrington, his face a blank mask, was about to show the woman out. But then Mrs. Zimmerman, as if struck by an idea, looked up at Sophia. "Miss Sophia, I can make amends." Then she dropped a bombshell. "I have news about your mother." Charles's expression tightened, and he quickly looked at Sophia. Sophia froze mid-step. Alex, who had seen her reaction, grew thoughtful. In all their past entanglement, he had never heard a single word about Sophia's parents. He only vaguely knew that she was estranged from her family, lived alone, and that her control of their finances was likely their only remaining connection. He had often speculated about her childhood, imagining every tragic high society drama he had ever seen his mother watch. In every scenario, Sophia was the brilliant protagonist who fought her way from the margins to the top. She was decisive, ruthless, and emotionally distant. A genius, perhaps, but a lonely and eccentric one. But she wasn't born from a rock. She had a mother and father. Her uniqueness made it hard to imagine what kind of parents could produce such an extraordinary daughter. So, when he heard the woman mention Sophia's mother, he was startled, as if he had stumbled upon a deeply guarded secret. "Miss Sophia, please give me a chance to redeem myself. I'll tell you everything I know about your mother." Mrs. Zimmerman crawled forward on her knees, reaching out a hand stained with tears and snot to grab Sophia's pant leg, as if it were a life raft. Sophia simply lifted her foot and pressed it down on the woman's hand. Mrs. Zimmerman's face twisted in pain, but she didn't dare cry out. In that moment, she finally understood. The young miss might be young, but she was not a fool. She never, ever should have tried to scheme against her. Sophia looked down at her, her eyes cold and devoid of any warmth. She enunciated each word slowly. "What did you say?" Mrs. Zimmerman's facial muscles twitched in agony, making her look both pitiful and grotesque, like something utterly repulsive. "Miss Sophia, your mother didn't die back then. She just got tired of that life, tired of me disappointing her again and again, so she staged her own drowning to escape everything that was making her miserable, and now she's hiding somewhere, starting over. Is that it?" Sophia's lips curved into a smile as she looked at Mrs. Zimmerman with amusement. Mrs. Zimmerman looked like a chicken with its neck wrung. She was speechless. The information she thought was her trump card had just been laid out by Sophia herself, leaving her with nothing. But back then, even the Harlan family had been fooled by her mother's death. How did Miss Sophia know the truth? Mrs. Zimmerman's heart sank. She had forgotten. The young miss was no longer that little girl desperate for a word of praise. She had grown up. She was a force to be reckoned with, having achieved what her mother had only dreamed of, crushing the entire Harlan family under her heel. And yet here she was, not satisfied with Sophia's yearly generosity, wanting more. Knowing how important the person Sophia was looking for was, she had foolishly tried to pass off her own son, who had been raised by his grandparents and had never even met Sophia, as the real deal. But in the end, who was she to Sophia? Just a housekeeper who had worked for her mother for a few years. Miss Sophia looked after her financially out of a sense of nostalgia, and she had repaid that kindness by treating her like an idiot. Regret gnawed at her, but it was too late. Sophia said mockingly, "So that's all you know?" And here I thought, after serving her for so many years, you two had become as close as sisters, that she told you everything and you knew all her secrets. Charles had Mrs. Zimmerman escorted out. He saw Alex standing there, stunned, and gave him a slight nod in greeting. "Husband," Sophia said, her voice soft. The moment she saw Alex, all the iciness around her melted away, and she transformed back into the sweet, harmless girl next door. "Do you think I'm a bully?" Alex shook his head. "You did the right thing, Sophie. Sometimes, kindness isn't repaid with kindness." He knew that all too well. Sophia let out a quiet sigh of relief, her expression softening. "I was afraid you would hate me for being like this." After a moment of silence, she added, "Actually, I've been looking for that woman. I was out all night yesterday, because I got a tip about her whereabouts. I went to confirm if it was really her." Alex was surprised. Sophia was free to meddle in all his affairs, but he didn't feel it was his place to pry into hers. He had 1,000 questions about what he had just heard, but he had planned to keep them to himself. For her to bring it up voluntarily was unexpected. He noticed, however, that she had called her mother that woman. It was clear their relationship was not good. But even so, she must still be a preoccupation, or why else would she search so tirelessly? Alex hesitated slightly. So, did you find any news of her? It wasn't her, Sophia said, shaking her head. Then she added coldly, I'd recognize her even if she were reduced to ashes. Alex, he thought about how Sophia had recognized him after so many years. Did that mean if he were reduced to ashes, she would still be able to pick him out? Hell, what an honor. With Sophia's status and power, no one could wrong her unless she allowed it. Anyone who displeased her would get it back 100-fold. But right now, she was emotionally exhausted and needed to recharge. Alex was her power source. Just a hug from him could make her feel better. This time, the power source switched from passive to active mode. Before Sophia could hug him, Alex stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her. The effect was twice as powerful. She closed her eyes greedily, inhaling his scent. Alex didn't offer any empty platitudes like, if your mother is alive, you'll be reunited one day. The fact that Sophia called her that woman made it clear how much she resented her. If only people could choose their parents, Sophia murmured. I would definitely choose a new pair for myself. Someone like your parents would be perfect. Alex chuckled. Then we'd be brother and sister. That would be nice. I always wanted a sibling, but I guess that's not happening in this lifetime. Sophia's reaction was surprisingly strong. I don't want to be your sister. Alex, why? Sophia furrowed her brow. If we were siblings, I couldn't be your wife. I'd rather be alone forever. Alex, you know, Sophie, there are plenty of guys out there who are better than me. No, in my eyes, they're all worthless. You're the only one who's the best. Sophia never hesitated to praise him with the highest possible compliments. Before, Alex had been confused by it. Now that he knew the reason, he felt a little inadequate. He hadn't really done anything. There were millions of men in the world kinder and better than him. It was just a coincidence that he had been the one to cross paths with Sophia when she was at her lowest. Husband, she said, her voice muffled against his chest, I don't understand. If that woman didn't like me, why did she have me? She was running on empty this time, so the recharge was taking a while. Her mood had hit rock bottom. Alex wondered how she coped with her bad days when he wasn't around. Her question tugged at his heart. His family wasn't wealthy, but his parents had poured all their love into him. If he had another life, he would choose them as his parents again. He couldn't imagine what that woman had done to make the fiercely loyal Sophia feel so profoundly that her own mother hated her. She was the definition of a perfect child. Any other parent would be overjoyed to have her. Why would her mother hate her? It just didn't make sense. In the safety of Alex's embrace, Sophia's repressed emotions found an outlet. She gave birth to me only to ignore me, to despise me. No matter what I did in her eyes, it was always wrong. Alex didn't say anything. He didn't know the full story, so he didn't know what to say. Besides, he felt that what she needed right now wasn't empty words of comfort, but a solid hug. I tried so hard to please her, but she would never even look at me properly. Later, I found out. In her eyes, my birth was a mistake. Hearing this, Alex couldn't take it anymore. If he felt this bad just hearing it, how much must it have hurt Sophia to live it? He tightened his arms around her. Sophie, it wasn't your fault that she didn't like you. It was her problem. You are amazing, you know that. Sophia let out a forced laugh. Charles and the others all say the same thing. Eventually, I realized it was true. That woman has a problem. She's sick. She added, if she had really died in that ocean, I think it would have been a pretty good ending. Coming from anyone else, those words would have been chilling. But coming from Sophia, I didn't feel that way. Perhaps Alex was just so full of sympathy for her, so completely on her side, that he felt an instinctive dislike for the woman he had never met. It created the illusion that no matter what harsh things Sophia said, that woman deserved it. I've just been trying to confirm one thing lately, Sophia continued, her voice becoming clearer and more rational as she spoke. After she faked her death, is she still alive? There's something I want to ask her in person. Alex silently wondered if she wanted to ask why a mother would hate her own daughter. But then Sophia's train of thought swerved. I want to ask her where she put the doll my grandmother sewed for me. Alex, he was a fool for even trying to guess what was on her mind. Was that doll very important to you? Sophia hummed, lost in a sad memory. My grandmother was the best person in the world to me. She was so kind, so wonderful. She would sneak me food when that woman wouldn't feed me. What? Your mother? I mean, that woman. She abused you. Alex was stunned. He was grateful that Sophia was finally opening up to him about her childhood. He had always suspected it was bad, but hearing her confirm it still sent a shiver down his spine. Sophia managed a small smile, which, for some reason, seemed to comfort him. It sounds like your parents never used hunger to punish you. I'm grateful to them for that. Alex, he was their biological son. Besides, he was so well-behaved. He never even had a rebellious phase. His easygoing parents never had a reason to punish him. Sophia was grateful to his parents for not starving him. Okay, he admitted that touched him. Did she ever hit you? He asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. He pictured the Sophia from years ago, the same age as him, but so much smaller, looking 2 or 3 years younger. Such a small, delicate girl. How could her own mother be so cruel? Even if it was in the past, some childhood wounds last a lifetime. As he waited anxiously, Sophia shook her head. No, she never hit me. Alex had just started to breathe a sigh of relief when he heard her say in an indifferent tone she couldn't be bothered with brutish, physical punishments. She preferred simpler methods, like not feeding me, or psychological attacks. Sophia didn't elaborate on how her mother had attacked her mentally. She spoke as if she had truly forgotten all the unpleasant memories. But the more indifferent she acted, the more Alex's heart ached for her. He wished he could travel back in time to her childhood, be her hero swooping in to save her from that hell and give her the normal childhood she deserved. Maybe I should even thank her, Sophia said breezily. Without her, I might not be the person I am today, the person who can crush anyone I want under my heel. But Alex knew, if she were given the chance to trade everything she had now for a normal childhood, she would do it in a heartbeat. Sophia blinked, thinking for a moment. Alex, you're not pitying me, are you? I don't need pity, she declared. But I do need to be cared for, she added, her voice full of authority. Only by my husband. So, husband, answer me quickly. Are you caring for me? Alex dramatically clutched his chest, playing along. My heart is breaking from how much I care. Sophia earnestly reached out and rubbed the spot over his heart. If your heart breaks for me, then my heart will break for you. It was a good thing no one else was around. The cheesy back and forth would have made anyone cringe. But neither of them was just being cheesy. Alex's words were sincere, and so were Sophia's. Charles returned. Miss Sophia, someone from the Harlan family is here. It had to be about Caleb. With the complete surveillance footage Sophia's team provided, the assault was undeniable. The whole thing started from a misunderstanding, but Caleb, as an adult, had chosen the most impulsive and idiotic way to handle it. He had acted recklessly, banking on his status as a Harlan. And this time his luck had run out. After being taken into custody, he still hadn't grasped the severity of the situation, insisting the kid had provoked him and refusing to pay the medical bills. When Mrs. Zimmerman had come to Sophia for money, she had instead been hit with a demand to repay everything she'd ever been given. With no other options, she was now clinging to Caleb, demanding $5 million for a settlement. After paying for her son's medical bills, it wouldn't be nearly enough to pay back Sophia, but it was her only chance to repay even a little. She had trapped herself. It was what she deserved. Alex felt a surge of admiration for Sophia. She hadn't even shown her face, yet she had managed to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, punishing both people who had wronged her. It was brilliant. This was a cautionary tale, and Alex made a mental note. Never, ever get on Sophia's bad side. You'd never even see it coming. Sophia linked her arm through Alex's and started walking toward the dining room. They hadn't had breakfast yet. She could go hungry, but she couldn't let her husband go hungry. She just said, oh, and left it at that. Charles didn't press her for instructions on how to handle the Harlans. The master and servant, in perfect sync, simply forgot about the matter, treating the people outside like thin air. About half an hour later, as if just remembering the distinguished guest waiting under the hot sun, Charles smoothed his jacket, put on a flawless professional smile, and slowly went to the gate. Mr. Harlan, my apologies for the wait. The man in the suit outside was sweating profusely, his smile strained. Even if he melted in the sun today, he deserved it. That's what you get for having such a troublesome brother. He had warned him, begged him not to provoke this girl, but he just wouldn't listen. And now look, he was in a holding cell. This time, he was lucky. It was just a trip to the station. Money could solve the problem. But what about next time? Would he be so lucky again? Did his brother have any idea how dangerous this girl was? She wasn't one of the vapid socialites who fawned all over him. The man, Ethan Harlan, looked apologetic, his tone exceptionally respectful. We are very sorry about Caleb's actions. It's our fault for not teaching him better. As Miss Sophia's anger subsided, Charles said smoothly, Mr. Harlan, you're too kind. Miss Sophia has a big heart. She's already forgotten all about it. Ethan, Heh, that's the biggest joke I've heard all year. Her with a big heart. Charles added thoughtfully, Mr. Harlan, your brother injured that young man quite badly. The compensation must be substantial. Miss Sophia has prepared a sum. No, no, that's not necessary. Ethan quickly interjected. We can handle a small matter like this ourselves. There's no need to trouble Miss Sophia. Charles nodded. Very well. It's getting late, and it's so hot out. Please, feel free to head back. Ethan. He turned and left, sticky with sweat, waving goodbye to the smiling but deadly butler. The moment he turned around, the smile vanished from his face, replaced by a deep, anxious frown. She wouldn't even see me. In the first-floor surveillance room, Sophia pointed at the screen showing the well-dressed Ethan Harlan. Husband, remember this. Yesterday's moron and today's well-dressed scumbag. Stay away from them if you see them. They're no good. You don't want to get their bad luck on you. Yesterday's was a half-wit with an underdeveloped brain. Today's one looks like a normal person, but he's no good either. Sophia's critique of her two half-brothers was sharp, her disdain practically written on her face. All right, I forgot to tell you. The funny thing is I actually have some blood ties to them. Alex was surprised. In the current timeline, he wasn't supposed to know about Sophia's connection to the Harlan family. Sophia had always tried to distance herself from them, as if ashamed of the Harlan blood in her veins. She should have been the last person to bring it up. But here she was, voluntarily telling him about her private family matters. People only drop their guard and speak freely with those they trust implicitly or are incredibly close to. Alex was honored to realize he seemed to be both. He let out a single, shocked syllable. Huh. Sophia gave a self-deprecating smile. Surprising, isn't it? Alex stated the obvious. You don't look anything like them. It made sense, given they had different mothers. I don't look like that old man, and I don't look like that woman either, Sophia said dismissively. I take after my grandmother. Alex, he had never heard of someone saying they took after their grandmother's looks. Her mother didn't like her, and she resented her mother, even referring to her disrespectfully as that woman. In the eyes of the public, the two young masters of the Harlan family were golden boys. The second son, Caleb, was, beneath his polished exterior, nothing more than a hedonistic playboy. But the eldest son, Ethan Harlan, was a different story. Groomed since childhood to be the heir, he was a graduate of a prestigious university with strong business acumen. Tragically, before he could take the reins from his father, the family business faced a catastrophic disaster. The once mighty Harlan Corp was on the verge of bankruptcy. The family elders were helpless. Ethan was frantic, but couldn't come up with a viable solution. The entire Harlan family was shrouded in gloom. Then, at their darkest hour, it was the illegitimate daughter they had never paid any mind to, a girl not yet an adult, who, with a business savvy that stunned everyone, single-handedly pulled Harlan Corp back from the brink. The family, shocked, assumed she was trying to prove her worth to be officially recognized by them. The family patriarch, Victor Harlan, after much deliberation with the elders, decided to graciously welcome her into the family, given her genius-level intellect. To everyone's surprise, she couldn't have cared less. She even changed her surname from Harlan to Reed. Only a few insiders knew that her mother's surname wasn't Reed either. Ethan later found out she had taken her grandmother's last name. Not only did Sophia not want their recognition, but her every word and action made it clear she looked down on the Harlan family. She had intervened only because she wanted control of Harlan Corp. Ethan didn't think she was driven by a love of money. He believed she simply reveled in the pleasure of crushing them all under her heel. It took 2 years for the Harlan family to move from shock and resentment to reluctant submission. It wasn't shameful. It was just being smart enough to know when you're beaten. Sophia was young, but her mind was a weapon. The gap between an ordinary person and a genius was a chasm they couldn't cross. Caleb had been abroad the whole time and hadn't witnessed Sophia's terrifying business tactics firsthand. He had promised not to bother her, but behind everyone's back, he still, if you don't write this apology letter, then don't bother coming back. The person on the phone yelled before hanging up. Michael Turner stared at his phone, his face pale, and let out a silent sigh. When he looked up, the anger and sorrow were gone. He forced a smile, making sure no trace of his turmoil was visible, and then cheerfully greeted a neighbor as he walked home. Even with a smile, the man who had just worked a 24-hour shift couldn't hide his bone-deep exhaustion. Emily Turner's heart ached for him. She set a steaming bowl of biscuits in front of him. "What is wrong with your company?" she complained. "You've been so busy lately, and then they make you work a night shift yesterday? Are they trying to work you to death?" Michael buried his head in his food. "It's fine. I'm still young and strong enough. It won't kill me." Emily teased. Your son is old enough to bring home a fiancée, and you still have the nerve to call yourself young? Michael finished his food and thought for a moment. Honey, work has been intense lately, but it's better now. The company's given me a few days off to rest. Well, it's about time, Emily said. You really need a break. Look at how exhausted you are. His wife's sympathy made Michael feel a lump in his throat. He couldn't tell her that there had been an incident at work, that it wasn't his fault, but his superior was blaming him for it. His pride wouldn't let him accept it, but his boss had given him an ultimatum: take the fall or get fired. He was afraid of worrying her. He silently drank the last of the broth in his bowl and looked up to see his wife looking like she had something to say. Michael, I need to tell you something. Knock, knock. The knock on the door cut her off. She got up to open it, and her face lit up with a smile. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? Alex stepped aside to let Sophia in first. If I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise, he said with a grin. Sophia politely greeted the couple, then looked around the apartment. Her first words were, there's not much to pack. Moving should be easy. Michael, who had been gone for 24 hours, had no idea they had been gifted a villa and was completely confused. Alex noticed his father's weary expression and frowned. Dad, did you work the night shift last night? Yeah, work's busy. But you were on the day shift yesterday. Can your body handle working back-to-back like that? It was a normal, concerned question, but Sophia heard it. She wouldn't let her husband work hard, and she certainly wouldn't let his parents work hard either. She looked at Michael and said decisively, Uncle, if the work is too hard, you should just quit. You can stay home with Annie, do some gardening, raise some flowers. Retire early. Michael. His daughter-in-law was rich, but that was her money. He could stomach his son living off her, but for him and his wife to do the same, it didn't feel right. Besides, he wasn't even 50 yet. It was too early to just garden with his wife. Wait, gardening. Flowers? Alex saw his expression and knew he was out of the loop. Dad, Sophie has a house that's just sitting empty. She wants you two to move in. Michael was stunned, looking at Sophia in disbelief. Sophia said earnestly, we could go transfer the deed today. I think we can start moving tomorrow. Wait a minute, Michael said, holding up a hand. He hadn't slept in a day, and his brain felt like mush. Sophia noticed his fatigue and said considerately, Uncle, why don't you get some rest first? The paperwork isn't urgent. If we can't do it today, tomorrow is fine. But we should move soon. The environment over there is much better, the air is cleaner, and it's quieter. It'll be good for Andy's health. Michael's head was spinning, urged by everyone. He finally lay down on his bed, his mind a swirl of confusion and the anger he'd brought home from work. As he closed his eyes, one last incredulous thought floated through his mind. Sophia wants us to move into her house, and she's transferring the deed to us? That's like just giving us a house for free. When he woke up that afternoon and was dazedly dragged to the county records office, he finally realized it was all real. Outside the records office, Michael started to voice some reservations. Sophia's eyes immediately reddened. Uncle, if you don't accept my house, does that mean you don't accept me as your daughter-in-law? Michael. Alex watched in amazement and realized Sophia wasn't just acting. She was genuinely hurt. The red-rimmed eyes, the wounded little expression, it made his own heart ache. Michael felt like a monster. Oh, honey, don't cry, please don't cry, he said, flustered. Of course, Uncle will accept it, okay? Sophia's tears vanished as quickly as they came, replaced by a radiant smile. Thank you, Uncle. You're the best. Michael. He didn't know if he was supposed to say, you're welcome. It was surreal. Someone gives him a villa, and then thanks him for it. The world had gone mad. After the paperwork was done, Michael got a call. Alex saw his father's face fall for a split second before he forced a smile and dismissed it as a spam call. Instinct told Alex his father was in trouble, but was hiding it so they wouldn't worry. It wasn't just him. Sophia had noticed it too. What's wrong with Uncle? She whispered to Alex. Alex shook his head silently. Let's just have him stay home and rest, Sophia said matter-of-factly. He doesn't need to work so hard for pocket change. Alex didn't know what to say. In the eyes of a billionaire CEO, his father's salary really was just pocket change. A month of his hard work probably didn't even cover one of her dinners. After a moment's thought, Alex analyzed it from his father's perspective. My dad's not the type to sit still. Plus, he's not even 50 yet. Getting him to quit. That's not very realistic. This small problem was nothing for a genius like Sophia. That's easy to solve. If Uncle and Annie think the yard is too small, I can have someone buy them a couple of acres in the countryside. They can grow whatever they want. That way, they'll have their freedom but won't be bored. Alex, and if you think farming is too much work, how about this? I'll open a shop for Uncle, hire a manager to run it, and a few employees. Uncle can drop by whenever he wants, check the books, count the money. If he doesn't feel like it, he could just stay home with Annie. Alex, oh well. Michael's phone rang again. This time, he rejected the call almost instantly. Another spam call? Emily asked. Yeah, Michael said, his expression unchanged. Been getting a lot of them lately. My number must have been leaked somewhere. Husband, Sophia whispered. Uncle is lying. Alex glanced worriedly at his father's back and whispered back. I know. You're sharp, Sophie. My dad is definitely hiding something from us. The two of them, huddled together and whispering, looked exactly like a young couple sharing secrets, which he supposed they were. Even if he had been a reluctant participant at first, he had unknowingly fallen into this, no longer resisting her presence in his life. People, himself included, were easily changed. Alex found that he was okay with that. He won't tell us because he's afraid we'll worry, Sophia said. But that just makes us worry more. How about this? Since he won't say, I can have Charles look into it. Fearing she was about to pull out her phone and issue a command, Alex quickly said, That's okay, Sophie. My dad is an adult. I'm sure he can handle it. Sophia just stared at him with her beautiful, intelligent eyes. Then she said, I get it. You think I'm being nosy. Alex, he threw up his hands in surrender. No, that's not what I think at all. Don't you dare accuse me of that. I just don't want you to overwork yourself. Sophia snorted. But I'm not overworked at all. Then, to his own surprise, Alex heard himself say, But I think you are. A possessive streak he didn't know he had just made its debut. Sophia. Walking ahead with her arm linked through Michael's, Emily looked back and saw the young couple laughing and talking. A wave of contentment washed over her. She really was lucky. She had married a good, honest, hardworking man. She'd had a sweet son who never gave them any trouble. And now that son, just after turning 18, had brought home a perfect daughter-in-law. Her only misfortune was her chronic illness. It wasn't fatal, but day after day, year after year, she felt like a burden. But a bad life was better than no life. She still wanted to see her son get married, have children, hold her grandchildren. That evening, Alex found out from his friend, Jake Ramirez, what his father had been hiding so carefully. Jake and Alex had been neighbors for years, and their fathers had been colleagues. Later, Jake's family bought a new house and moved, and his dad quit to start his own business. They saw each other less, but the boys' friendship remained strong. Jake's father, a sociable man, still kept in touch with his old co-workers. Alex, that manager is a real piece of work. We all know what kind of man your uncle is. Even if that guy tries to pin the blame on him, people know the truth. We all believe he's innocent. That's how Alex learned about the injustice his father was facing at work. His father's direct supervisor, a Mr. Hudson, had a sister-in-law who had made a major mistake at work. To protect her, Hudson had shamelessly tried to scapegoat his diligent father. He had even hinted that if his father took the blame, he would be rewarded. But Michael had been an honest man his whole life. He would never sell his integrity for a small gain. Besides, the manager's offer reeked of setup. If his father agreed, the consequences could be disastrous. When he refused, Hudson flew into a rage and threatened to fire him. Just as Jake said, people knew his father was being framed. But under Hudson's thumb, no one dared to speak up for him. That's how the story had reached Jake's father. Alex's chest heaved with anger. He felt like his lungs would explode. A faint, pleasant scent drifted toward him. Then, a pair of arms wrapped around him from behind. Husband, a soft voice said, Let me take care of your troubles. Alex's body went rigid. His mind exploded with a deafening buzz, drowning out whatever Jake was now saying indignantly on the phone. Sophia, fresh from her shower, enveloped him in a warm, damp embrace, her skin smelling of soap and shampoo. She had been training in martial arts since she was a child and wasn't as delicate as other girls her age. Her limbs were slender but strong, yet the parts of her that were meant to be soft were soft enough to make his heart tremble. She hugged him from behind, her semi-damp hair brushing against his cheek and spilling over his shoulder. The cool, damp sensation shocked him back to his senses. Without a word, Sophia reached a slender hand around him and decisively pressed the speakerphone button. Your uncle has been wronged like this. We can't just let it slide. Alex, I ate so much of your mom's cooking growing up. When my mom hit me, my own dad just stood there and watched, but your uncle defended me so many times. We can't let this go. I'm telling you. Don't worry about it. Leave it to me. I'll handle it. Alex cleared his throat. I appreciate the thought, man. But how exactly do you plan to handle it? Are you going to find out where this manager lives, wait for him after work, throw a sack over his head, drag him into a dark alley, and beat him up while warning him to leave my dad alone. Jake! He wouldn't admit it, but that was exactly what he was thinking. Sometimes the simplest, most brutal methods were the most effective. But hearing his plan voiced by Alex made him realize how reckless and immature it was. It wouldn't help his uncle and might even make things worse. No way, he said defensively. My plan is foolproof, not that impulsive. I'll handle my uncle's problem. Sophia's voice cut in coolly. You don't need to worry about it. The voice on the other end of the line jolted. Jake almost dropped his phone. He thought of the ridiculously fancy car currently parked in his driveway, the one that made people ask daily if his family had won the lottery. He still hadn't properly thanked the owner. Hey, about that car. You really didn't have to. It's just a car. Nothing to mention. Sophia's tone, as if she were talking about a toy, made Jake choke on his words. It was another stark reminder of the class divide between him and this heiress. It also made him feel that if he kept gushing about his gratitude, he'd sound like a whiny baby. And just like that, the unease of receiving such an extravagant gift vanished. He realized his best friend no longer belonged entirely to him. Taking the hint, he made an excuse and hung up. He clutched his still-warm phone, a sly grin spreading across his face. It's so late. Why are Alex and his girlfriend still together? Oh, are they sleeping in the same room? Sophia frowned. Someone's bullying uncle? Alex was silent. His father rarely talked about work, but he had heard bits and pieces from others over the years. His father was an honest, hard-working man, which some people saw as a weakness. And he was too principled, not slick enough in his dealings, which made him a target for certain malicious types. He was passed over for promotions, paid less than others, and given the hardest work. He had endured a lot, but he always came home smiling, showing them only his positive side and shouldering the burdens himself. He had put up with it for the sake of his family. But this time, the manager who had been suppressing him for years had gone too far. He couldn't tolerate it anymore. Of course, his son wouldn't let him, and his daughter-in-law definitely wouldn't either. Sophia's face was grim. Her husband, and the people her husband cared about, were under her protection now. No one was allowed to bully them. Just as Michael Turner was lying in bed, fuming over his manager's aggressive behavior, and unable to sleep, his phone rang. He was shocked to see it was his son. How did you know? Alex's heart was heavy. Dad, when I was a kid, you always told me I was a man and I had to protect Mom. But did you forget? Your son is grown up now. I have to protect my dad, too. Michael swallowed the lump in his throat and forced a casual laugh. I'm not that old yet. I can handle some things on my own. But I'm an adult now, Dad, Alex said, frustrated. You're afraid of worrying Mom, but you can talk to me. I can help. Don't try to carry everything by yourself. He was lecturing his father, but he was guilty of the same thing. In his past life, when Sophia had imprisoned him, stripping him of his freedom and dignity, he had never once thought of asking his parents for help, even during his worst breakdowns. He knew they couldn't change anything. They couldn't fight Sophia. Telling them would only bring them more pain. Thinking of his past, Alex looked with complicated feelings at Sophia, who was now fiddling with the buttons on his pajama shirt. She really was something else. She had somehow concocted a believable story to explain his years of absence to his parents. Something about him being recruited by a top-secret government agency for a confidential research project. It sounded ridiculous, and his parents had been skeptical. But Sophia, the genius who had saved a dying corporation, had somehow made them believe it. She even sent them a large sum of money in his name every month without fail. On her good days, she would let him call them, and during those calls, he would have to suppress his bitterness and tell them he was fine. And now, here he was, living in harmony with that same Sophia. It was unbelievable. Sophia held out her hand. Alex obediently handed over his phone. Pleased, she kissed him on the cheek, then leaned her upper body against his back as she spoke into the phone. Uncle, it's Sophie. Besides her intense possessiveness, Sophia had many brilliant qualities. Once you got to know her, you realized her stunning looks were the least interesting thing about her. She was a once-in-a-generation super genius. Alex already knew that. What he discovered today was that she also had a magical ability to change people's minds with just a few words, to make them accept her suggestions and follow her arrangements. She was a born leader. Michael Turner, who had been bracing for a sleepless night, felt a wave of relief wash over him after a short chat with his daughter-in-law. Suddenly, life felt beautiful again. Why let a few scumbags ruin his mood? They weren't worth it. If someone wanted to make his life miserable, he'd return the favor. You poke a sleeping bear enough times, you shouldn't be surprised when it bites back. He'd long been disgusted by the parasites poisoning the company. If it hadn't been for the paycheck that kept his family afloat, Would he have swallowed his pride for so long? A fire ignited in Michael's chest, and for a moment he was 17 again, full of righteous fury, ready to take on the world. He fantasized about storming into the office tomorrow, giving that weasel Hudson and his so-called sister-in-law a piece of his mind. He'd do this, then that, and finally land a knockout punch that would settle the score once and for all. But it was just a fantasy. He wouldn't really do it. It wasn't that he lacked a spine. He'd been a hothead in his youth, but after he got married, he had a wife to answer to. After Alex was born, he had a son. Responsibility had compelled him to become a good husband and father. He was the pillar of the family, and he'd done everything in his power to give them a good life, sanding down his own rough edges in the process. He never imagined that in doing so, he'd become an easy target in everyone else's eyes, a pushover. Michael slipped out of the bathroom and crept back into the bedroom, easing himself onto the bed beside his wife. He gently patted her shoulder when she stirred, coaxing her back to sleep. Sophia had told him she would handle it. She'd said to eat, drink, and sleep well, and not to give it another thought. It was strange, but as soon as she said it, the anger that had nearly given him an ulcer dissipated. He calmly handed the problem over to her and drifted off to sleep, his daughter-in-law having given him all the reassurance he needed. "Alex, I'm serious. Don't you ever be like your dad," Sophia said, cupping his face in her hands, her beautiful features tense with warning. "No matter what happens, you have to tell me first. I'll help you fix it." She continued, "Take today, for instance. Your dad wouldn't talk about what was bothering him. I know he had good intentions. He didn't want you to worry, so he tried to carry it all himself. But I know how agonizing and lonely it must have been for him to suffer in silence." Alex looked into her deeply serious eyes and nodded instinctively. "I know, but won't that be hard on you, Sophie? I don't want you to have to work so hard for me, any more than you want me to." Sophia looked genuinely confused. "Why would it be hard? Doing anything for you is never hard. Don't you know how happy it makes me when you or your parents need me?" Alex's mind echoed with the words of Charles, Mrs. Helen, and Arthur Lowe. "You are incredibly important to Miss Sophia. She would move mountains for you." But a huge question mark still hung in his mind. He couldn't understand. If he was so important to her, and she had gone to such unreasonable lengths to keep him, why hadn't she just continued to hold him captive until he broke? Why had she, in the end, looked at him with such disgust and told him to get lost? After you left, Miss Sophia was inconsolable. Later, she fell ill with an incurable disease. The doctor said it was brought on by deep-seated sorrow. Alex froze. So, he was the reason Sophia had died young? Why? Why hadn't he understood it before? Why couldn't he hear the hidden meaning in her command to get lost? Choosing to let him go would literally kill her, yet she had done it without a second thought. He couldn't bear it anymore. He pulled Sophia into a crushing hug, holding her so tightly he thought he might break her, terrified that if he loosened his grip, she would vanish. In his past life, he had been as stubborn as a mule, refusing to yield. When she had exhausted every method, he had fallen into despair, lying in bed, refusing to eat, drink, or speak, becoming a soulless, walking corpse. After 2 months of this, Sophia had finally grown tired of him. But now he understood. She hadn't been tired of him. She had been afraid. The girl who feared nothing was terrified that something would happen to him. The same girl whose favorite threat was, "If you don't listen, I'll break your legs and chain you to my side for all eternity," had never laid a hand on him. She couldn't bring herself to cause him any real harm. She had let him go, given him his freedom, and he had been too blind to see it. When she'd held him captive, he had been miserable. He'd seen her as a monster. But this monster had treated him like the most precious jewel in the world. A monster whose own dark childhood had left her with no idea how to protect that jewel, except through brute force and possession. The truth hit Alex with the force of a physical blow, a sharp pain lancing through his chest. Thank God he'd been given a second chance. A chance to right his wrongs. A chance to cherish Sophia. She was a good person. She just didn't know how to love. Sophia's eyes widened, sensing a shift. "Alex, what's wrong?" He had never hugged her like this before. So fiercely, so desperately. He buried his face in the crook of her neck, nuzzling against her skin. "Nothing. I just wanted to hold you." "Are you sure?" she asked, still hesitant. "I was just thinking how lucky I am to have found a girl as good as you." "You've got it wrong, Alex. I'm the lucky one. Meeting you is the greatest luck of my life." She said it with such conviction, as if all the suffering she'd endured before had just been preparation for this moment, making it all worthwhile. The intensity of Alex's hug was intoxicating. Sophia surrendered to it, so deliriously happy she felt like she was floating between dream and reality. But her joy was short-lived. A hand shot out from the abyss, its grip icy and cruel, dragging her back down into the endless dark. It was the same heart-stopping sensation as missing a step in a dream and plummeting from a skyscraper. Alex felt her body go rigid in his arms, the soft rabbit he'd been holding turning into a block of wood. He looked down, confused. "Sophie." The lost look in her eyes startled him. She cupped his face, her gaze fixed on his, unblinking, as if trying to memorize every pore, every line. She gently rubbed his cheek, her voice uncertain. "Alex." As if playing some game he didn't know, she changed tactics. "Alex Turner?" He'd gotten so used to her calling him husband these past few days that hearing his full name felt strange. "I'm here." Her eyes reddened. Against her pale skin, the blush was starkly visible, creating a look that was both pitiful and strangely alluring. She wrapped her arms around his neck, pressing her upper body against his, her cheek rubbing against his with a deep, affectionate need. "This isn't a dream, is it?" She had asked this before. He remembered that night she'd woken up alone, curled into a ball on the floor, crying. He held her tighter. "I'm here, Sophie. I promise you're not dreaming. I'm right here beside you now, and I'll always be here." They clung to each other, their bodies and souls intertwined, inseparable from that moment on. "Alex, do you have any idea how long I look for you?" she whispered. "From the day we were separated, you lived in my dreams. But every time I almost reached you, you would disappear. Every single time. It was so cruel." Alex was speechless. The thought of being the object of a beautiful girl's nightly dreams was an honor that left him feeling completely overwhelmed. Was that why? Was it because she could never catch him in her dreams that when she found him on the street, she'd been so terrified he'd vanish again? Was that why she had resorted to such unbearable methods to keep him, imposing all those bizarre restrictions, just to make sure he was there whenever she needed to see him? Alex sighed silently. Honestly, if she were still treating him the way she had at the beginning, he would still find it suffocating. But if he had known the truth sooner, he would have been more patient. Sophia wasn't scary at all. In fact, she was quite simple. You show her 1 ounce of kindness, and she'll return it tenfold. Once she started talking, she couldn't stop. "You know, Alex, sometimes I wondered if you were just a hallucination, something my fever-addled brain cooked up when I was sick. I wondered if a person like you even existed in this world." The memory of that old despair seemed to surface, and her body began to tremble. "Whenever I thought about that possibility, my life felt meaningless." Alex's heart clenched. He unconsciously stroked her shoulder, his lips pressing a soft, reassuring kiss to the top of her fragrant hair. "I was so scared I'd forget what you looked like," she continued. "So I drew a portrait of you every single day, trying to burn your image into my mind." He was too stunned to speak. "I'm so happy that fate brought you back to me." Sophia would never forget the day she found him again. She had been searching for both Alex and her biological mother. That day, she'd received a tip about Catherine's whereabouts. Charles was driving her to the location when she glanced out the window and saw a tall, slender young man in a baseball cap, a backpack slung over his shoulders, hurrying down the street. Her heart hammered against her ribs as if struck by a mallet. Every nerve ending in her body fired at once. All she could see was his back, straight and lean, but a voice inside her roared. "It's him. I finally found him." He was so much taller than she remembered, but the contours of his face, free of its boyish softness, were the same. The warmth she remembered in his eyes was still there, but now it was tempered by a detached coolness that unsettled her. She followed him for 50 feet, her hands and feet trembling. She was terrified he would vanish, just like he always did in her dreams. She lunged forward to grab his arm, but in her anxiety, she stumbled, falling at his feet. He turned, startled, and looked down at her with those clear, almond-shaped eyes, concern etched on his face as he offered a hand. "Hey, are you okay?" She took his hand. It was large and warm, a heat that felt both familiar and intoxicating. Tears welled in her eyes. This time, she had actually caught him, and she would hold on tight for the rest of her life. She looked up at him, her eyes red-rimmed, and in a pathetic tone she didn't recognize as her own, she said, "My leg really hurts. Can you take me home?" He glanced over his shoulder at a coffee shop 50 feet away and seemed to hesitate. His hesitation filled her with a profound sense of injustice. "I've been searching for you for years. Not a day has gone by that I haven't thought of you, and you don't even recognize me. You're not even sure if you want to help me." Sophia had a plan. If he politely refused, she was ready to drag him off the street right then and there. She would lock him up and keep him forever. Luckily, he did as she asked. Otherwise, after a long pause, Alex finally asked the question that had been burning in his mind. Sophie, why did you leave without saying goodbye back then? Sophia froze. She lifted her head and stared at him, her expression a mix of joy and resentment. You're only just now recognizing me? I recognized you from a single glance at your back, she said, her voice filled with disappointment as her face fell. What does that say? It means that in your heart, I was just some insignificant passerby, right? But she couldn't really blame him. He was the only ray of light in her life. Alex, on the other hand, had loving parents and friends. The few days she had spent in his life were just a fleeting moment. The fact that he remembered her at all should have been enough. Unfortunately, she was greedy. She wanted his body and his soul. All of it. Sophia pressed her face to his chest, listening to the strong, steady beat of his heart as if it were the most beautiful music in the world. Her thoughts drifted back to those few days, which had seemed so dark and hopeless at the time but were, in hindsight, the happiest of her life. To keep her a secret, Alex would sneak over the wall to see her at night after the adults were asleep. That morning before dawn, he had slipped away as usual, whispering for her to go back to sleep. He was so warm, so kind. He fed her, took care of her, and would wake in the night to pull the blanket back over her, checking her forehead for fever. She knew he meant well, but she could never sleep after he left. She would huddle by the wall, listening to the sounds from outside, desperate to learn everything about him. The obedient boy, he was with the adults. The smart one, he was with his peers. That morning, Sophia heard his grandmother's cheerful voice call out, Alex, time to go. Hiding on her side of the wall, Sophia's heart leaped in her throat. Go. Where's he going? She knew he didn't live here, that he was just visiting for the summer. She knew this day would come, but she never expected it to be so soon. Was he really leaving? Why hadn't he said anything to her? Hurt and terrified, she scrambled over the wall. She saw Alex sitting in the back of an electric tricycle with another, taller boy. They were laughing and talking as the vehicle pulled away, completely oblivious to her chasing after them. A small, thin girl, still recovering from her illness. How could she possibly keep up with a motorized tricycle? But the fear of never seeing him again fueled her, pushing her to run and run. She didn't know how long she ran. It felt like a lifetime, until she reached a bustling, crowded place. She wandered through the throng, dazed, ignoring the strange looks people gave her as she desperately searched for him. And then she thought she saw him. He was so different from everyone else. Even in the crowd, she spotted him immediately. The street was too loud for him to hear her calls. She pushed her way toward him, and then it seemed he saw her too. He looked surprised, then started walking toward her. Just as she was about to cry with joy, a large hand appeared out of nowhere, brutally preventing their reunion. She was shoved into a car, forced away from that place, and separated from Alex in a most abrupt, unexpected way. Sophia pulled herself back from the memory, silently clinging to Alex. That long trek had left her with bleeding blisters on her heels, making it impossible to walk for days. But looking back, she didn't regret a single moment of the pain. Just when Alex thought she wouldn't answer, she spoke. I ran away from home. They were looking for me. They found me and took me away. It was the Har. Alex started, then corrected himself. It was the Harlan family that took you. Sophia was quiet for a moment, then shook her head. No. Alex was surprised. Besides Catherine, my grandmother had a son, she explained. Before she died, she entrusted me to him. Her grandmother's son. Her uncle. He's the one who took me away. She shifted uncomfortably in his arms. Alex gently patted her shoulder. Was he good to you? I don't know. I don't think he liked me very much either. Alex, why does almost no one I know seem to like me? Who says that? I like you. My parents like you. Your grandmother, Charles Arthur. Sophie, don't sell yourself short. You're a good person. If they don't like you, that's their problem, not yours. As he said the last part, Alex felt a pang of guilt. Nobody was perfect, and Sophia's strengths and flaws were especially pronounced. When she was good to you, she could move you to tears. But when she was being irrational and domineering, she could make your life a living hell. After their reunion, he hadn't just disliked her. He had hated her enough to want to strangle her. But he protected me, Sophia conceded. He kept me from falling back into that woman's hands, or the Harlans. She sighed. Even though I hate that he just took me away and forced me to leave you without a word, he did protect me. I'm still grateful for that. Where is he now? Alex felt like both sides of Sophia's family were a tangled mess. Sophia answered casually, him? He said he was going to go teach that lovesick woman a lesson for me. Alex froze. At first, everyone thought her mother had drowned, but later it was confirmed she had faked her death. That meant her uncle was gone. Lung cancer, Sophia said with a sudden, sardonic smile. And he never smoked a day in his life. Beneath her casual tone, Alex could feel a profound sadness. Even though she didn't call him uncle, even though she acted like she didn't care, his death had clearly hit her hard. The grandmother who had adored her, the uncle who had protected her, both gone. That night, Sophia talked more than she ever had before, and Alex learned more about her. But he knew it was just the tip of the iceberg. She spoke simply, but her past was undoubtedly far more complicated than she let on. She was tired now, sleeping soundly in his arms. Alex held her, leaning against the headboard, feeling as if he were holding the entire world. He pressed a long, deep kiss to the crown of her head. Have a good dream tonight, my Sophie. I will always, always protect you in my own way. Moving day was astonishingly simple. There was nothing to move. The villa was fully furnished and stocked. On the day they chose, even though Emily insisted they didn't need a thing, Arthur Lowe had arranged for a full delivery of household supplies, from bed linens and towels to toothbrushes and paper towels. Both of the large refrigerators were filled to the brim, one with fresh produce, meat, and eggs, the other with imported delicacies from around the world. Knowing Michael enjoyed a drink now and then, a massive wine cabinet on the first floor was stocked with bottles worth thousands apiece. The house was, of course, immaculate. The front yard was a beautifully landscaped garden, lush with greenery. A magnificent crepe myrtle was in full bloom, and clusters of hydrangeas in various colors dotted the space. Emily, a lover of all things green, was immediately smitten. From now on, she could get her morning exercise and evening strolls without ever leaving her own yard. The backyard, a generous 2,000 square feet of rich soil, had already been tilled by Arthur's team, ready for them to start their own organic vegetable garden. For Michael and Emily, moving house meant simply moving themselves. Their small, two-bedroom apartment remained untouched, a place they could return to whenever they felt nostalgic for their old neighborhood. And, of course, a house from Sophia wouldn't come without cars. The spacious garage housed a pristine lineup: a Rolls-Royce, a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, a Mercedes, and a Land Rover. Sophia explained that she wasn't sure which model Michael would prefer, so she bought 5 to start. If none of them felt right, she'd buy more. The garage was certainly big enough. Michael was speechless. What was the biggest downside of having a ridiculously wealthy daughter-in-law? The generational and financial gap was so vast that conversations could die an awkward death at any moment. She bought luxury cars like ordinary people bought groceries. The problem was, he and his wife were the type to haggle over the price of 2 heads of cabbage. The couple felt like they were in a dream. They couldn't believe they were actually living in a mansion they'd only ever seen on TV, with a fleet of supercars at their disposal. Yet Sophia still felt it wasn't enough. She quietly asked Alex, "Do your parents like it here?" Sophia had more money than she knew what to do with, so she never thought of it as a big deal. No matter how much she gave, she worried it wasn't good enough. Conversely, she craved affection. A small act of genuine kindness from someone was something she would treasure for a lifetime. Alex gently plucked a flower petal from her shoulder, a fond smile on his face. "Sophie, don't doubt yourself. You've done more than enough." Sophia's brow furrowed slightly. But they've barely said a word since they got here. What if they're not happy with something, but are too polite to say so? Of course not. They're just in shock. They can't believe they're actually going to live in a place this nice. Honestly, Alex didn't understand her anxiety. She had been to his family's old apartment. The cramped 2-bedroom felt like a shoebox compared to this beautiful estate. Even a 3-year-old could see the difference. Why did she keep thinking she hadn't given enough? That hit him. She cared too much. Her anxiety was clouding her judgment. She stood under the crepe myrtle tree, the mid-morning sun filtering through the leaves and dappling her face. Her skin, full of youthful collagen, glowed with a rosy hue that outshone the flowers around her. Alex thought of the imposter kid who had been so captivated by her, and a complex emotion welled up inside him. For a moment, he marveled that this incredible girl would have died for his past, ungrateful self. She was so foolish. With her looks and resources, countless talented young men would have lined up to give her the world. Then, a small, smug sense of superiority crept in. By all rights, a guy from his background should never have crossed paths with Sophia Reed. But by a twist of fate, he had met her when she was at her most vulnerable. All he'd done was offer a little help, and she had latched onto him, never letting go. If someone else had found her in her time of need, she would have become obsessed with him instead. There was no denying it. In both his past life and this one, her impact on him was monumental. In the past, she had left him with nothing but traumatic memories. But to be fair, she hadn't completely ruined his life. After she let him go, he had managed to get back on his feet through sheer willpower. His eventual tragic end had little to do with her. This time around, when Alex finally let his guard down and accepted her, he was amazed to find how smoothly everything was going. So this was what it felt like to be on top of the world. It was that simple. But was Alex the kind of person who looked for shortcuts? More important than reaching the pinnacle of success was finding the girl worth protecting for a lifetime. In the backyard, Michael and Emily were planning their garden with Charles, who was proving to be a surprisingly enthusiastic amateur landscaper. "Honey, look, we can plan the vegetable patch like this," Michael said, squatting down and using a stick to draw boxes of different sizes in the dirt. As he was excitedly outlining his vision, his phone rang. He pulled it out and scowled at the screen. He was about to dismiss it as a spam call and block the number, but his fingers slipped and he answered by mistake. Completely oblivious, Emily glanced at the caller ID. "Oh, it's your boss. You should take it. Is it something about work?" With her husband, son, and daughter-in-law all conspiring to keep her in the dark, Emily was blissfully unaware of the recent turmoil. But she was sharp, and to avoid arousing her suspicion, Michael put the phone to his ear and walked a few paces away. Emily turned her attention back to the garden design her husband had sketched on the ground, imagining the near future. Rows of fresh vegetables, ready to be picked and washed for a family hot pot dinner. A contented smile spread across her face. "Turner, get down to the office. Now." It was his direct supervisor, Mr. Hudson, barking orders as if he had every right. Michael's response was ice cold. "Sorry, can't make it." This was the guy who was fooling around with his sister-in-law and had tried to pin the resulting mess on him. The atmosphere at the company used to be decent. Michael had been a diligent employee, respected by his previous manager and on track for a promotion. But after a chaotic corporate reshuffle, his old boss retired, and the manager position that should have been his was snatched up by the newly arrived Hudson. A few days into the job, Hudson started harassing a young new hire, making her stay late for overtime. Michael hadn't wanted to get involved, but halfway home, a sense of unease settled over him. He imagined if he had a daughter, and some creep was preying on her, he would probably want to commit murder. Gritting his teeth, he went back to the office, claiming he'd forgotten something. Sure enough, the predator was using his position to grope the young woman. If Michael hadn't shown up, she would have suffered far worse. The girl thanked him with tears in her eyes and quit the next day. From then on, Michael became Hudson's favorite target. He had a wife on long-term medication and a son in school. He couldn't just quit, so he endured it. But he never regretted his decision. Hudson had finally crossed a line, and when he'd threatened to fire him, Michael was already prepared for the worst. He was older, and finding a new job would be hard, but he wasn't afraid of hard work. Before he left, though, he was determined to give that bastard a taste of his own medicine. But things hadn't turned out to be so difficult. He now had the confidence to face unemployment. Emotionally, that confidence came from his son. Financially, it came from his daughter-in-law. "What did you say?" Hudson paused, then seemed to remember something and reined in his temper. "I'm not calling about the liability form. There's a new project I need to assign to you. Get back here right away." Michael hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Michael didn't hold back. "Are you deaf? I said I'm not available. You told me to get lost, right? Well, let me make it crystal clear for you. I quit." He hung up and blocked the number in one smooth motion. From a distance, Sophia watched him return to his garden planning, a renewed vigor in his step. A mischievous, sly smile touched her lips. At that moment, she looked playful, lively, and utterly adorable, the way an 18-year-old girl should be. Alex's gaze lingered on her face. He couldn't help but imagine how dazzling Sophia would be if she had been born into an ordinary family, raised with love and care. Not that she wasn't dazzling now, but her difficult past had forced her to build walls, making her seem cold and unapproachable to many. It was an intimidating, almost gloomy coldness that screamed Ice Queen, pushing people away. Anyone brave enough to look past that and pursue her was a true warrior. Sophia's gaze drifted from the backyard and met his. She caught him staring. She touched her cheek, confused. "Is there something on my face?" "Yes," Alex said. Unlike other girls, Sophia wasn't overly concerned with her appearance. The cruel irony was that she was a natural beauty, at the peak of her youth, stunning even without a touch of makeup. She could wear a potato sack and still look runway ready. She had the looks and the talent, a combination that would make anyone else envious. But looking at her, Alex only felt a pang of sadness. They say when God closes a door, he opens a window. Did that mean that in giving her beauty and brilliance, God had cruelly slammed the door on the carefree childhood she deserved? Sophia rubbed her face haphazardly. Is it gone now? She didn't care about her appearance, except when Alex was looking. Alex studied her seriously for a moment, then shook his head. Remembering her sly smile, he chuckled. Want to know what was on your face just now? Sophia hadn't seemed to care, but his question piqued her curiosity. Yes. What was it, Alex? Alex didn't draw it out. A wicked little smile. Sophia blinked. What? He leaned in closer, his warm breath tickling her cheek. You were smiling, and I could tell from that smile that someone is about to have a very bad day. Am I right? She stared at him, her eyes wide, not reacting for a long moment. Alex wondered if he hadn't been clear enough. She was smart. She should have understood. Just as he was about to ask, she spoke. Alex, you have something in your eyes, too. Having just teased her, Alex knew better than to think there was actually something in his eye. He smiled. Oh yeah? What's in my eyes? A light, she said. Afraid he hadn't heard, she repeated it with solemn gravity. Alex, there's a light in your eyes. It's so bright. A light so brilliant it dimmed everything else in the world. A light that had illuminated her entire life. Alex was momentarily stunned. A gentle, floral-scented breeze drifted between them. He smiled, and the light in his eyes that Sophia saw seemed to grow even brighter. There's a light in your eyes, too, Sophie. He felt a little embarrassed and a little guilty. Sophia always gave him the highest praise, but he knew he wasn't as good as she thought. Her perception of him was filtered through the lens of those few days they'd spent together that summer. To deflect his own discomfort, he changed the subject. So, was I right before? Congratulations, you were, Sophia said. Someone is indeed about to have a very bad day. Can I know who? She gave him a playful, beckoning gesture. Alex leaned down, offering his ear. Sophia glanced toward the backyard, then quickly pecked him on the cheek. After the kiss, Sophia delivered the answer. The people who bullied your dad, of course. Meanwhile, blissfully unaware of the doom headed his way, a certain someone was cursing under his breath as he left his cool, air-conditioned office. He pulled up the navigation on his phone and drove toward a rundown old apartment building. For lunch, they sat in a private dining room at a lavish five-star hotel. A pianist played a beautiful melody as a top chef prepared a seafood feast before them. They sipped on red wine that cost tens of thousands a bottle, getting a real taste of the extravagant life of the upper class. Meanwhile, Mr. Hudson, who had once lorded over Michael Turner, was stewing in his own sweat, furiously knocking on the door of the apartment across from the Turners. The neighbor peeked through the peephole and saw a strange man. Hudson's face was red and splotchy from the heat, and he'd violently loosened his tie, giving him a menacing look. She was home alone with her young grandson and didn't dare open the door. Unable to get an answer from the Turners or their neighbors, Hudson felt a wave of helplessness. He was hot, tired, thirsty, and hungry. It was pure misery. He heard footsteps on the stairs behind him. Thinking it was the Turners returning, he spun around, only to see a sweaty, sour-faced, middle-aged couple climbing the stairs. The three of them stared at each other. The man spoke first, his expression sheepish. Excuse me, are you Mr. Turner? Hudson deflated. You mean Michael Turner? Yes. Are you Michael Turner? No, Hudson snapped, then an idea struck him. Michael had blocked his number, but he could use someone else's phone to call him. Oh, you're here to see Michael? He said, adopting a familiar tone. I'm his colleague. I'm here to see him too, but he's not home. He feigned frustration. Unfortunately, my phone's dead, so I can't reach him. Could I borrow yours? I can call him back for both of us. The couple exchanged a look. The wife had a suspicious, unpleasant expression, eyeing Hudson as if she expected him to snatch the phone and run. If he wasn't desperate, Hudson would have spit in her face. The husband, however, was more agreeable and handed over his phone without a word, watching him expectantly. Hudson mumbled his thanks and dialed Michael's number, sweat dripping from his brow. Mom, Dad, how's the food? Sophia asked. It's wonderful, dear, really delicious, Emily replied, looking around the opulent room for what felt like the 10th time. She felt like a country mouse in the big city, marveling at everything. She resisted the urge to gasp, afraid that one wrong move would embarrass Sophia. Her eyes finally settled on the pianist in his crisp tuxedo. She silently wondered if $10,000 would even cover the bill. They were used to simple, home-cooked meals. When Sophia had suggested eating out, their first instinct was to politely decline, driven by their frugal nature and a desire not to be a bother. But then they considered Sophia. She had grown up with private chefs and nutritionists. She probably wasn't used to their simple fare. Besides, they didn't want to disappoint her. Emily shot Michael a meaningful look. Michael excused himself to use the restroom and headed for the door. Just as he stepped out of the room, Alex followed. He caught up to his dad, who was heading in the opposite direction of the restrooms. "Dad," Alex said, an all-knowing look on his face. "Are you trying to pay the bill?" Michael was caught. "You should probably just go to the restroom and come back," Alex advised sincerely. "But look at everything Sophie's done for our family," Michael argued. "I know she's not worried about the money, but it's the thought that counts. It's a way of showing our appreciation." Alex sighed. His well-meaning father clearly didn't grasp the situation. He decided to be blunt. "Dad, how much money do you have in your bank account right now?" Michael faltered. He knew lunch would be expensive, but he thought he could at least afford this one meal. His son's direct question made him second-guess himself. "Well," he asked hesitantly, "how much do you think this lunch costs?" Seeing his father's uncertainty and unease, Alex felt a pang of sympathy. A person's worldview is often limited by their circumstances, making it hard to judge things beyond their experience. It was what made people seem like country bumpkins to others. "Dad, you're treating her like an outsider again," Alex said gently. "That's the last thing she wants." He was getting remarkably comfortable with being a kept man. Michael's phone rang, displaying an unknown local number. He answered. "Hello, Michael Turner." Hudson's voice crackled through the speaker. Fearing he would hang up, Hudson rushed on. "Don't hang up. Listen, you need to get back to the company right now. There's a huge project, and it's for you." Michael was unfazed. "Oh, and?" Feeling confident, Hudson relaxed his tone, wiping sweat from his forehead. "It's a $10 million project. You'll get a 1% commission." "Sounds nice," Michael said flatly. "But I'm just curious. Why aren't you giving such a great project to your sister-in-law?" Leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, Alex could tell from his father's expression exactly who was on the phone. He's already calling Dad? Sophia must have pulled some strings. He thought back to her wicked smile under the crepe myrtle tree, remembering the dog-eat-dog chaos she'd orchestrated between Caleb and the imposter kid. A flicker of anticipation went through him. He wondered what kind of misfortune she had planned for this guy. In the sweltering heat of the old building's stairwell, the couple watched as Hudson's face cycled through shades of red and white. He looked like he wanted to explode, but he forced out a placating response. "Michael, you're a veteran at the company. We can only trust you with this project." Michael was unmoved. "Thanks for the vote of confidence, Mr. Hudson, but unfortunately, you already told me to pack my bags and get lost." Beep, beep, beep. Hudson stared at the phone in disbelief. Michael Turner had hung up on him again. Back in the private room, Michael's phone rang again. Another number was added to his block list. As Alex sat down, Sophia, who had been listening politely to Emily, slid her hand under the table and found his. Her slender fingers threaded through his, her palm pressing against his in a firm, possessive grip. Alex glanced at her. She had shed her usual icy demeanor and was playing the part of the perfect, obedient daughter, listening intently to Emily's small talk. But Alex saw the faint, suspicious curve of her lips as she secretly held his hand. She wasn't as engrossed as she appeared. Sensing his gaze, she shot him a sidelong glance, and the finger intertwined with his tapped lightly on the back of his hand, a clear signal. Alex complied, tightening his own fingers to complete their hand clasp. The suspicious smile on Sophia's lips deepened. She was pleased with his cooperation. It was a private joke only he could understand. The air conditioning in the room was set to a comfortable temperature, but Sophia's hand was still cool, likely due to her constitution. Alex unconsciously began to rub the back of her hand with his thumb. Try to warm it up. It was an absent-minded gesture, but he felt her hand stiffen. She turned to look at him, her expression strange. Alex was completely bewildered. "What now?" Michael's phone rang yet again. Emily looked at her husband. "Is that work again?" she teased. "You never seemed so important to them before. How come they can't leave you alone on your day off?" "It's not work," Michael said, looking at the caller ID with surprise. "Mrs. Gable." Mrs. Gable was their next-door neighbor, a kind woman who often went grocery shopping with Emily. It was odd for her to be calling him. "Hello, Mr. Turner. I saw you all leave early this morning. When are you coming back? I don't think you should come back for a while. There are people waiting at your door." Michael's expression turned to one of shock. According to Mrs. Gable, there were now 4 people camped out in front of their apartment. They had arrived in 3 separate groups. The first was a man in a blue suit with slicked back hair. Michael guessed it was Hudson. This was bizarre. Hudson had come in person just to get him to take a new project. Something was off. Michael glanced at Sophia. Hudson's sudden desperation must have something to do with her. Next to arrive was a couple also looking for him. Mrs. Gable's description was vague, but Alex had a good idea who it was: Lily Thompson's parents. Not long after, another man, slightly heavy-set, had shown up. They had enough people for a game of mahjong. Mrs. Gable thought they looked like trouble and had called to warn them. When the Turners had left that morning, she had cheerily asked where they were going. Michael had joked that they were moving, but since they weren't carrying anything, she had dismissed it. Michael thanked her and looked hesitantly at Sophia, who was staring silently at a dish in front of her. She'd been lost in thought for a while, and for just as long, Alex had been trying to guess what was on her mind. It was a futile effort, he knew, but he didn't dare move. Sophia might not be as difficult as he once thought, but she was still, at her core, the mercurial CEO. Ever since he'd rubbed her hand, her mood had shifted. He was certain that was the cause. Their hands were still locked together under the table, but the sweet connection he'd felt before was gone. Emily looked at Sophia with gentle eyes. "Sophie," she called softly. Sophia snapped back to the present. "What were you thinking about so intently?" Sophia forced a smile. "I was just thinking about my grandmother." She turned to Alex, her smile reaching her eyes as she squeezed his hand. That simple squeeze was a signal. The alarm bells in Alex's mind went silent, and his body relaxed. He sighed internally, walking on eggshells around royalty. In a relationship with such a power imbalance, it was always the weaker one who was on edge. A deep sense of urgency washed over Alex. Despite all the ways Sophia showed she cared for him, what if he was overestimating his importance to her? What if she met someone else who could save her? What if they ended up going their separate ways? Even if it was just to feel like he deserved her, to not be a complete freeloader, he had to get his own career off the ground. He had been a semi-successful entrepreneur in his past life, and with the knowledge he had from the future, he could easily build a respectable business. But he was hesitant to make any sudden moves. Their relationship was just beginning to stabilize, and he didn't want to trigger her insecurities. She seemed to enjoy providing for him. It was her way of maintaining their connection. He had a feeling that if he suddenly became ambitious, it would make her feel threatened. Fortunately, the business opportunity he had his eye on hadn't emerged yet. He could use this time to build a stronger foundation with her, to earn her complete trust. Then, he would make his move. The four people in the sweltering stairwell were pacing like ants on a hot plate. Hudson was desperate. The company had landed a $10 million deal, but the client had specifically requested Michael Turner to lead the project. The CEO, taking this very seriously, had asked to meet with Michael immediately, only to be told he wasn't at work. Then another colleague had accidentally let it slip that Hudson had told Michael to pack his bags and get lost. The CEO had exploded. When the CEO heard that Michael Turner was quitting, he looked like he'd just lost his own father. He immediately ordered Hudson to go and personally, respectfully, bring Michael back to the company. Even if he wanted to quit, he had to finish this project first. No, he couldn't quit. If the client CEO specifically named Michael Turner for the project, it meant they knew each other. The CEO was stunned to learn that one of his low-level employees had such a powerful connection. Appearances could be deceiving. Bringing him back, giving him a promotion and a raise, and locking down this wealthy new client was now the top priority. But despite Hudson rushing over to Michael's apartment, he found no trace of him, and he wasn't the only one desperate to find the Turners. Although Lily Thompson's final sentence hadn't been handed down, her parents had learned from authoritative sources that jail time was inevitable. A minimum of 3 years. A minimum. Given the large sum of money involved in the blackmail, a 10-year sentence wasn't out of the question. Susan Thompson, a shrew with no legal knowledge, finally grasped the severity of the situation. Her daughter was her future, her meal ticket. A prison sentence would ruin her life. On their lawyer's advice, she had finally swallowed her pride and dragged her husband over to beg for a letter of forgiveness. As for the dean of students, Mr. Fulton, the unlucky man who had been suspended and was now under investigation for getting involved, was hoping to grovel for forgiveness from Alex and the wealthy heiress behind him. The problem was they couldn't even find the people they needed to beg. Just as they were about to start questioning the neighbors, one helpful resident informed them that the Turners had gone on vacation. When would they be back? Nobody knew. Peeking through her peephole, Mrs. Gable saw a stout, unfamiliar middle-aged man. She had no idea who he was, but he had managed to get rid of all four troublemakers with the vacation story, and for that, she was grateful. "If that manager can't get your dad back to the office, his boss is going to have his head," Sophia said later back in the car. "The guy who bullied your dad is now a mouse in his hands." Your dad can finally get back at him for all the grief he's caused over the years. She paused, then looked at Alex, a hint of worry in her eyes. But I'm afraid your dad is too soft-hearted and might let him off the hook. He might be willing to, but I'm not. I'm gonna make that guy pay. She studied his face. Alex, do you think I'm being too vicious? Alex gently patted her hand, which was still resting on his knee. How could I? I should be thanking you for standing up for my dad. He quickly added, but I know you don't like it when I treat you like an outsider, so I won't say thank you. He'd lived 2 lives. He knew how the world worked. This wasn't an age for turning the other cheek. The whole forgive and forget and take the high road stuff was bullshit. If you turned the other cheek, they just thought you were an idiot. If you took 1 step back, they'd take 2 steps forward until you had nowhere left to go. An eye for an eye, a debt for a debt. That was how you were supposed to live. So many people were forced by circumstance to compromise and swallow their pride. Hadn't he and his family been among them? Now that Sophia was in their corner, anyone who dared to mess with them would face her wrath. Life felt better. The skies seemed bluer. It was a good feeling. Sophia clearly liked his addendum. Her eyes crinkled into a smile. Alex glanced out the window. Aren't we going home? He asked. After lunch, Sophia had arranged for a car to take his parents to the new house. He had gotten into the same car as her, assuming they were heading back to her mansion. The word home slipped out so naturally that Alex didn't even notice, but Sophia froze for a second, her face lighting up with pure joy. Besides the house where his parents lived, had he started to think of the place he shared with her as home, too? Oh, how can he be so perfect? So perfect that it often made her heart race with a quiet panic, afraid that this was all just an incredible dream. She stared at him, her eyes wide. She really wanted to kiss him. Alex turned back from the receding scenery outside and found her gazing at him, a certain unspoken desire shimmering in her eyes. Alex knew what to do. He had to indulge her. It wasn't about pleasing her. It was simply because he wanted to spoil her. In his eyes at that moment, she wasn't the imperious, unpredictable CEO. She was the pitiful little kid from that summer, hiding in a neighbor's house, covered in chickenpox, a proud but deeply lonely soul who had clung to him. He didn't owe her anything, but he felt an inexplicable urge to make up for her past, to see her happy. A question surfaced in his mind. Was the grandmother she'd mentioned today still alive? He didn't know for sure, but her somber mood earlier had already given him the answer. Alex leaned his head toward hers, their faces getting closer, as if sharing a secret no one else could hear. Her hair brushed against his cheek, a ticklish sensation. Sophia pressed a soft kiss to his cheek and whispered in his ear, "We're going to see my grandmother." On the outskirts of Seattle was a place called Eagle Crest, and halfway up the hill, in the most scenic spot, was a cemetery. That's where Sophia's grandmother was buried. The car couldn't go all the way up. When Charles opened the door for Alex, he gave him a subtle, meaningful look. Alex understood the unspoken request. This place made Sophia sad. Sophia stood beside him, looking up at the cemetery on the hillside. The sun cast a beautiful, heart-wrenching silhouette of her profile. Alex gave Charles a silent nod. Taking Sophia's hand, he began to climb up the stone steps, feeling the weight of a solemn mission settle on his shoulders. He was carrying the heavy fate of a girl with an unhappy childhood. Her future happiness now depended on him. Alex was 18. His own grandmother was in her late 60s, healthy and spry, still able to cook, clean, and manage her garden. The woman in the photograph on the tombstone looked to be about the same age, her smile kind and gentle. She looked like someone who would have been easy to love. Sophia said she had passed away when she was 10. The words were spoken casually, but they hit Alex like a punch to the gut. The pieces of their shared past clicked into place. They were the same age. The summer Alex was 10, staying at his grandmother's house, was when he met the sick, runaway girl. She had looked younger, but she had been 10 years old, too. 1,000 tiny needles pricked at Alex's heart. Why had she run away? Was it because her grandmother, the only person who loved her, was gone? Had she lost all connection to her so-called family? Did you grow up with your grandmother? The old Alex would never have dared to ask such a question, afraid of touching a nerve. But now, seeing her as that same lonely little kid, he wasn't afraid. Sophia was silent for a moment before giving an answer that surprised him. No. Sensing her mood darkening, Alex quickly changed the subject. Your grandmother would be so proud to see how amazing you are now. This time, Sophia was silent for even longer. Alex winced. He'd said 2 things, and both had been wrong. Maybe he should just keep his mouth shut. If she saw me now, she'd probably be very disappointed, very sad. Alex was stunned. How could her grandmother be disappointed in someone so accomplished? If that was the case, what did that make him? A good-for-nothing freeloader. He felt pretty good about himself compared to his peers, but next to Sophia, he was nothing. Then again, very few people in the world could compare to her. She was a genius. Sophia looked down at the tips of her pristine, white leather shoes. The way I am now. Alex wanted to say, "You're great now," but he held his tongue. He didn't want to interrupt. This was a rare chance to understand her better. I finally became what that woman wanted me to be. Sophia let out a self-deprecating laugh, her voice low. This is the last thing my grandmother would have wanted to see. It hit Alex then. He had misunderstood. Her grandmother wouldn't be disappointed because she wasn't successful enough, but because she was too successful. The love of a grandparent is often simple and pure. Knowing the hardships Sophia faced, her grandmother had likely just wanted her to be happy, to live life on her own terms. It's so hard, Alex. It's so hard. I wanted to listen to my grandmother, but I couldn't. I fought, and I endured until I finally outlasted that woman. Although, as it turns out, she couldn't take it anymore and faked her own death to escape from me, her failed project. But at least she was out of my world for good. I thought I was free. I thought I would never have to study those things I hated ever again. But without her, there were still them. They wouldn't let me go. I only had two paths. One was to be used as a tool, a commodity, my life controlled by others. The other was to become strong enough to crush those despicable people under my heel, to make them fear me so much they would never dare to have any improper thoughts about me again. She looked at him, her eyes burning. If you had to choose between those two paths, what would you choose? Alex stared at her, his mind reeling. His choice. Any sane person would choose the second path, but not everyone could succeed. Sophia had. He felt helpless, murmuring, "Sophie." He raised a hand, wanting to wipe away the tears that were now streaming down her face. Seeing the ever-strong Sophia crying in front of him was unbearable. She fell into his arms. Hidden from his view, the corner of her lip twitched into a faint smile before it was swallowed again by a wave of overwhelming sorrow. On the way there, Sophia had personally stopped at a flower shop to buy a large bouquet of daisies, her grandmother's favorite. My grandmother was 61 when she died. It was too soon. I used to pray she would live to be 100, but things don't always work out. After that, I knew there were no gods in this world. She knelt, her eyes red from crying, and gazed at the photo on the tombstone. Alex stood behind her. People often cling to faith when they're lonely and helpless. How much disappointment must she have felt to conclude that there were no gods? "Grandma, you don't have to worry about me. I'm doing well, and I'm not lonely anymore. Do you see him? That's him. Isn't he tall and handsome?" she said, her tone almost boastful. "He's the best boy in the whole world, and he's my husband now." Alex felt a blush creep up his neck. He certainly didn't feel worthy of such high praise. He leaned down, as if addressing a respected elder standing before him. "Hello, Grandma. My name is Alex Turner. Please don't worry. I'll take good care of Sophie for you." Sophia looked up at him, a playful glint in her teary eyes. "You'd better remember what you said today. If you ever leave me, my grandmother will climb out of the ground and drag you back to my side." Alex shivered theatrically. "Oh, I'm so scared." He then adopted a serious tone. "A man is only as good as his word. I'll keep my promise." They stayed at the cemetery for nearly an hour. When they returned to the car, Charles was relieved to see Sophia's mood was stable. He gave Alex a grateful look. "What are you thanking me for?" Alex thought with a hint of pride. "She's your Miss Sophia, but she's also my pitiful little girl. I'm good to her because I want to make her happy, not because you asked me to." Stop the car. They hadn't gone far when Sophia, who had been resting against Alex, suddenly sat up straight. She'd seen something out the window. Before the car had come to a complete stop, she bolted out the door. Confused, Alex and Charles scrambled after her. About a mile from Eagle Crest, there was a busy commercial street. A department store was holding a promotional event on a large outdoor stage, with dancers in skimpy outfits performing for a large crowd. The bass from the speakers was painfully loud. The sudden appearance of a top-of-the-line luxury car, a stunningly beautiful girl, a handsome young man with an ethereal air, and a distinguished older gentleman immediately drew a lot of attention. Alex, running on adrenaline, caught up to Sophia first, panting as he leaned over with his hands on his knees. "What happened, Sophie?" Sophia stood in front of a chain clothing store, her brow furrowed. "I just saw someone from behind. She looked a lot like her." It took Alex a second to register who her was. Charles, who had just caught up, overheard and immediately began scanning the area. "Miss Sophia, I'll have people search the area at once." Sophia held up a hand. "No need. I just thought it looked like her. I'm not sure. Besides, if she went to all that trouble to start a new life, a woman as meticulous as her wouldn't be found so easily. Charles started to protest, but Sophia cut him off. She's tormented us enough over the years. I've suddenly realized she's not worth it. Let her hide wherever she wants. I don't want to look for her anymore. Charles hesitated. Miss Sophia, are you sure? Sophia looped her arm through Alex's and smiled at Charles. I have a new life now, too. Charles stared at her for a long moment. Then, as if finally understanding, he nodded eagerly. Yes, Miss Sophia. He turned quickly and headed back toward the car. Alex thought he saw him raise a hand to wipe his eye. Was he crying? The fact that his young miss was finally letting go of the past and looking toward the future must have been an immense relief. And Alex was not an innocent bystander in this. It was obvious he was a crucial part of the future Sophia envisioned. He had once detested the idea, but now he was honored. He had changed, but it felt right. As the ridiculously eye-catching Rolls-Royce pulled away, disappearing from the envious gazes of the crowd, a woman emerged from shadowy corner, silently watching the car depart. At the same time, Alex glanced back one last time, but saw nothing but the uninteresting, receding streetscape. The scene outside Sophia's mansion was surprisingly lively. Sophia released her grip on Alex's waist and sat up straight, her eyes turning cold. The recent dry spell and blistering sun were relentless. The men waiting outside looked like they had been standing there for hours, their faces flushed red, sweat pouring down their faces. As the Rolls-Royce approached, the gates swung open. The men in front scrambled to get out of the way. One of them refused to move until an older man kicked him in the backside and dragged him aside with an air of utter deference. Sophia snorted. A bunch of losers. It was Ethan and Caleb Harlan, along with two of their uncles. They clearly weren't there to cause trouble, but to drag Caleb over to apologize. In the Harlan family, Sophia was like an empress. She now held all the power, and whether they liked it or not, they had to bow to her. Charles said, Miss Sophia, if you don't wish to see them, I will send them away. Sophia gave a lazy hum of agreement. On days with Alex, she didn't want to go anywhere. She just wanted to stay home and be with him. A moment later, the staff member returned from the gate. My apologies, gentlemen. Miss Sophia is quite tired from her trip and is already resting. Caleb immediately erupted. Second uncle, third uncle, Ethan, you see? You can't blame me now. Look at her, putting on airs like she's the Queen of England. His hot-tempered third uncle smacked him on the back of the head. No one will think you're mute if you just shut up. Caleb started to argue, but a sharp glare from Ethan silenced him. He and his older brother had always been close, and Ethan had taken a fall for him countless times, though his image of his heroic older brother had been shattered when he became a spineless simp for some vixen. Grudgingly, Caleb closed his mouth. The messenger continued. Miss Sophia said that whatever it is can wait until she's at the office tomorrow. She prefers her privacy. Please forgive the inconvenience. After delivering the message, the staff member bowed apologetically and walked away, not even offering them a glass of water. Ethan and the other Harlans were used to Sophia's blatant disdain for them. It was nothing new. But Caleb exploded. Who the hell does she think she is? He raged. I didn't do anything wrong. You're the ones who forced me to come here and apologize. Otherwise, I would never have come here to be humiliated. I don't get it. What is wrong with all of you? Did she cast a spell on you? Why is everyone so terrified of her, like a bunch of mice cowering before a cat? Ethan was exhausted. Caleb, stop. You all say she's not to be trifled with, that she's a business genius, that Harlan Corp would have gone bankrupt without her. But it all sounds like a fairy tale to me. Caleb sneered. She's just a little brat who never even finished school. Can she even read? Well, load of crap. Ethan had had enough. Fine. Let me ask you this. Do you think everyone in the Harlan family, except for you, is an idiot? That we're all being played by a high school dropout? Caleb opened his mouth, on the verge of saying, yes, that's exactly what I think. The two uncles' faces darkened. The second uncle muttered, have her in the family. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. Ethan replied with cold objectivity, blessing or curse, I don't know. But it's a fact that the company was on the brink of bankruptcy. And it's also a fact that she saved it, allowing us to at least maintain our public image and not become a laughingstock. The uncles fell silent. Caleb scoffed internally. Too bad. We're already a joke. Why is the world so full of trash? Sophia murmured, lying on the sofa. It's so annoying. I just want to crush them all one by one. Alex quickly intervened, trying to steer her away from her more homicidal thoughts. Sophie, don't let them get to you. They're not worth it. You're right. They're not worth it. She was lying languidly on the plush sofa, her head resting on Alex's lap. Her long hair cascaded around them, a few strands trailing over his leg onto the cushions below. She reached up and stroked his cheek. "At least I have you. I'm so lucky." "Sophie, were they bad to you?" At the cemetery, she had cried about them not letting her go. Was she talking about the men who had been waiting outside their gate? Thank goodness she had managed, through her own incredible strength, to become the triumphant hero of her own story. Otherwise, what kind of life would she be living now? It was hard to imagine. He probably would have never met her again. What would his life have been like then? He found he didn't even want to guess. A world without her felt dull and meaningless. The next day, Sophia went to the office and Alex went out. Before they parted, there was the usual round of lingering hugs. They would see each other that evening at the latest, but neither could bring themselves to say a quick goodbye. This time, Arthur Lowe was driving a different car. Alex's eye twitched. "Arthur, can we please go back to the taxi?" "Why, sir?" Arthur asked, confused. "This car is too flashy," Alex joked. "And with my dashing good looks, I'm afraid I'll attract unwanted attention." "With me here," Arthur replied evenly. "What butterfly would dare approach you?" Alex was speechless. He supposed that was true. Sophia's people were fiercely loyal, and they viewed him as her exclusive property. No one would be allowed to touch. Resigned, Alex got into the car. Arthur smiled suddenly. "Mr. Turner, you truly are a breath of fresh air in this materialistic society." Alex laughed. "Don't flatter me, Arthur. I'm just self-conscious. I'm wearing designer clothes and riding in a luxury car, but all of this is from Sophie." "Sir," Arthur said, his tone serious, "please don't ever let Miss Sophia hear you say that." Alex winced. He'd said the wrong thing again. "There is no yours and hers between you and Miss Sophia," Arthur reminded him, his voice full of an almost parental concern. "What's hers is yours, and what's yours is hers. You are a family, a single unit. There is no division." Now that he was no longer working, Michael Turner was a new man. He poured all his energy into the backyard garden, taking his wife to a wholesale market early in the morning to buy over a dozen varieties of vegetable seeds. Even though the new house had everything, they still felt like something was missing. On their way back, they passed by their old apartment building and realized what it was, the family portrait that sat on their bedroom dresser. Emily smiled. "We need to take a new family photo." She was right. Their little family now included Sophia. Returning to their old apartment after just one night away felt surreal. The familiar surroundings of the neighborhood seemed like a world away. Mrs. Gable was walking her grandson and saw them. Her eyes widened in alarm. "Oh my goodness, you're back. You need to hide quickly." But it was too late. The persistent Mr. Hudson had already spotted them. "Hey, Michael," he yelled, running toward them. Out of breath, terrified Michael would disappear again. Michael gave his wife's hand a reassuring squeeze and faced the sweaty, panting Hudson with a blank expression. "Mr. Hudson, what are you doing here? I've already said everything I have to say. Please stop bothering me." Hudson forced a smile. "Come on, Michael. Are you still mad at me? We're buddies, aren't we? We can talk this out. It was all a misunderstanding. I apologize, okay?" Hudson knew Michael was holding a grudge. Now that he had the upper hand, of course he was going to milk it for all it was worth. But no matter how furious Hudson was, he had to play the part of the repentant subordinate. The company needed him. The CEO had given him an ultimatum: bring Michael back, or he could pack his bags too. So even after being told the Turners were on vacation, he had come back to try his luck. He couldn't believe he'd actually run into him. Michael's face was cold. "Who's buddies with you?" Hudson gritted his teeth. "Don't push it, you bastard." Emily, who now knew about the mistreatment her husband had endured at work, was filled with a mix of anger and sympathy. She hugged her husband and called him a fool for carrying the burden alone. Now, seeing Hudson, her patience was non-existent. "Go ask anyone in this neighborhood," she snapped. "They'll all tell you what a good-tempered man my husband is. He treated that company like his own home. For 15 years, he was dedicated. He barely ever took a day off, even when he was sick. All that hard work, all that loyalty. And what did you do? You pushed him to the point where he'd rather be unemployed than go back. Just how badly did you treat him? I'm telling you, you're wasting your time. My husband is never going back." Hudson's face flushed. In the past, he would have shot back, "Yeah, I don't like him, so what?" But now, with Emily dressing him down in public, he had to swallow his anger. He plastered on a pained smile. Yes, you're right. It's all my fault. You're absolutely right, ma'am. If you're still angry, you can hit me, yell at me. I won't say a word. But the company really needs Michael right now. For the good of the company." Michael cut him off impatiently. "Hudson, are you incapable of understanding plain English? You told me to get lost, and I did. Now the company needs me, and you think I should just come running back? Hudson's carefully controlled anger finally snapped. He was, at his core, a street punk who had never amounted to anything. His sister had married a man 20 years her senior, and he had ridden her coattails into a management position. He had no skills, just a big ego. And Michael Turner, who had once thwarted his fun with a new hire, had become his primary target. Mr. Hudson had never had a hard day in his life. As a child, he was spoiled rotten by his parents. As an adult, his sister and his powerful brother-in-law had his back. So despite being a useless loafer, life had always been smooth sailing. Coming here to grovel at the feet of his brother-in-law's demand was the most humiliating thing he had ever done. And Michael Turner was still throwing it in his face. Hudson couldn't take it anymore. His inner punk surfaced. He pointed a finger at Michael's nose. "Turner, I'll ask you one more time. Are you coming back with me or not?" Michael looked him up and down with contempt. The guy was younger, but his lifestyle of debauchery had left him looking pale and weak. He was no match. The man who had once swallowed his pride for his family stood tall and straight before the manager who had tormented him. "I'm not coming back. What are you going to do about it?" The tense atmosphere scared Mrs. Gable. She discreetly pulled out her phone, ready to call the police if things got out of hand. Hudson exploded. "Turner, I'm warning you, don't push your luck." Just as Alex walked into the complex, he saw the scene unfold. His face darkened. "Who do you think you're talking to?" This had to be the manager who had been bullying his father. Without a second thought, Alex swung, his fist connecting squarely with the man's jaw. He was a peaceful person by nature, but if someone dared to cross his family, all bets were off. Hudson stumbled backward and fell on his butt. He stared up in disbelief. He was the one who bullied people, not the other way around. With a roar of fury, he scrambled to his feet and lunged at Alex, ready to fight. But before he could even get close, a foot shot out and kicked him squarely in the chest, sending him sprawling to the ground. Alex, who had just been cracking his knuckles and preparing for round two, was left standing there. Arthur Lowe pointed at Hudson, who was now lying on the ground like a turtle on its back, struggling to get up. He turned to Michael and Emily. "My apologies, Mr. and Mrs. Turner. I'm sorry you had to witness that." Michael and Emily exchanged a look. They had been honest, hardworking people their whole lives. When bullied, their only recourse had been to endure it, unless pushed to the absolute breaking point. But ever since their son found them a rich and powerful daughter-in-law, whenever someone tried to mess with them, a protector would immediately appear. So, this is what it felt like to have someone in your corner. It felt good. Hudson finally managed to crawl to his feet, cursing. When he saw Arthur Lowe's face, he froze. On a sweltering 90-degree day, a chill ran down his spine. This man, wasn't he the client who was giving them the $10 million project? The big shot their CEO was treating like a god was now humbly addressing Michael and Emily as Mr. and Mrs. Turner. What was going on? Hudson's neck creaked as he slowly turned his head to look at Michael, who was now regarding him with an expression of pure disdain. A massive question mark formed in his mind. Who in the world was this guy? Arthur Lowe's face was cold. "Mr. Hudson, go back and tell your CEO the partnership is off." Hudson's mind went blank. His face turned ashen, and a cold sweat broke out all over his body. It was like he'd just been handed a death sentence. He realized this was about more than just a canceled contract. He had thought Michael Turner was a nobody he could bully with impunity. Only now did he understand that he had picked a fight he could never win. In the office of Jennings Imports, the general manager, Mr. Jennings, kicked Mr. Hudson to the ground. It wasn't enough. He wanted to throw him in a vat of boiling oil. His glamorous wife shrieked, "Are you crazy? Why are you kicking my brother? Why am I kicking him? I want to kill him. I gave him a job here. I didn't ask him to do anything but keep his head down and stay out of trouble. And what does he do? He bullies my most loyal employee into quitting." Mrs. Jennings didn't understand the gravity of the situation. It's just one employee. He laughed, so what? Hire someone new. It's not like the company can't function without him. You can't kick my brother over some nobody. Is my brother less important to you than some low-level worker? Mr. Jennings clutched his chest. A low-level worker? Do you have any idea how powerful the person backing him is? They could snap their fingers and run us out of Seattle. The reality of the situation finally dawned on Mrs. Jennings. Is it really that serious? She stammered. But if he had such powerful connections, why would he put up with working here for so many years? Mr. Jennings roared. You're asking me? Who the hell am I supposed to ask? This was no longer about a $10 million loss. His entire company was on the line. He looked at the useless brother and sister duo, a knot of regret tightening in his gut. Years ago, he had kicked out the wife who had stood by him through thick and thin, pushed out his former brother-in-law who had helped him build a company, and married this woman, 20 years his junior. He had even given her good-for-nothing brother a cushy job, and this was how they repaid him. Of course, Mr. Jennings wasn't innocent. He knew exactly what his brother-in-law was up to. But as long as it wasn't too outrageous, he had turned a blind eye for his young wife's sake. So what if some employees had a hard time? That was their problem. He was a businessman. Only the bottom line mattered. Without his tacit approval, would Hudson have dared to torment Michael so brazenly? Sophia had said she would handle it, and she wasn't playing around. Someone had to pay for the years of misery her future father-in-law had endured. Hudson's face was pale. He knew it would be bad, but he never imagined it would be this bad. If his brother-in-law, a Seattle native, could be run out of town, what chance did he have? He was just an ant they could crush whenever they pleased. Regret, sharp and bitter, filled him, but there were no do-overs in life. "Brother-in-law, is it really that bad?" he whimpered. "I didn't know he had such powerful connections. If I had known, I would have treated him like a king." Mr. Jennings, red-faced with rage, shoved his crying wife away. "What's the use of saying that now? You could have pissed off anyone, but you had to pick him. Now he and his backers won't rest until they've destroyed us." He seethed. "What did I ever do to deserve being stuck with you two parasites?" Hudson was miserable. He'd held a grudge against Michael ever since he'd interfered with his fun and had taken every opportunity to make his life hell. He knew a little about Michael's family situation. He knew he couldn't afford to lose his job. And even if he did quit, so what? There were plenty of people looking for work. The logic was sound. How could a man with powerful friends have tolerated his abuse for so long? It was surreal, but it was happening. Mrs. Jennings, spineless as ever, clung to her husband again. "Are they really going to be that ruthless? Isn't there anything we can do? Honey, please, think of something." Mr. Jennings was at the end of his rope. This woman, whose broken nail would have once sent him into a panic, was now an unbearable sight. He slapped her across the face and kicked Hudson again for good measure. "Think of what? I've got nothing. Now get out, both of you. Get the hell out." "Mr. Jennings, you should try to cool down, even in this heat. Anger is bad for your health." A calm, slightly mocking voice drifted into the room. The office door opened, and Arthur Lowe, who was just a driver in front of Alex, strode in. His powerful presence filled the room, silencing the three people inside. Mr. Jennings deflated like a punctured tire. Mr. Lowe, unlike Charles, Arthur Lowe didn't bother with a gentle smile. His face was like stone. "Mr. Jennings, have you decided how you're going to apologize to Mr. Turner and compensate him for years of emotional distress?" The office AC was on full blast, but sweat beaded on Mr. Jennings' forehead. He had no idea who this Mr. Lowe was, but he knew he was someone he couldn't afford to cross. And according to Hudson, this same man had been incredibly deferential to Michael Turner. This was bad. This was really bad. The real power wasn't Mr. Lowe, but the person Mr. Lowe worked for. "Mr. Lowe," he stammered, wiping away sweat that was instantly replaced by more. "How would you like us to apologize to Mr. Turner?" Arthur glanced at Hudson on the floor, then tapped his fingers on the gleaming surface of the desk. The sound seemed to echo on their frayed nerves. "I heard his harassment of Mr. Turner began after Mr. Turner heroically stopped him from assaulting a young intern. Is that correct?" Mr. Jennings was quick on the uptake. "I'll launch a full investigation into all the despicable things he's done behind my back. I assure you, Mr. Lowe, if the evidence is there, I don't care if he's my brother-in-law or my own father. I'll personally hand him over to the police." Arthur nodded slightly in approval, then his tone shifted. His ability to harass a young woman at the office with such impunity probably has something to do with your tacit approval, Mr. Jennings. Mr. Jennings's blood ran cold. Yes, it was foolish of me. I treated him like a brother. I truly had no idea he was capable of such a thing. But I believe my father mentioned that he reported the incident to you the very next day, a new voice said, and you reprimanded him for insubordination and making baseless accusations. Mr. Jennings looked up to see a tall, handsome young man leaning casually against the doorframe, his eyes fixed on him. It was Alex. Mr. Jennings stammered, "Was there such a thing? I'm getting older. My memory isn't what it used to be." But some things couldn't be avoided by playing dumb. Hudson would pay for his arrogance, and Mr. Jennings would pay dearly for his complicity. Sophia had said it before. When it came to Alex, there were no small matters. She would move heaven and earth for him. She would give him everything. All he had to do was stay by her side. That'll be 38.20 out of 50. Michael, what are you doing here? Jake Ramirez, who had been dutifully manning the cash register, broke character the moment he saw Alex, his face lighting up with surprise. The Starbright Market was located just outside their old complex, serving the local residents. It provided a steady, if modest, income. Besides his parents, Jake's cousin worked as a cashier. She was a great employee, but a few days a month she needed off, and Jake would get dragged from his video games to fill in. Alex, who had been next in line, gestured for him to focus. When the previous customer left, he placed a bottle of water on the counter and started looking for his payment app. Jake rolled his eyes. Seriously, dude? Don't insult me. Take whatever you want, it's on the house. He grinned and slapped Alex on the shoulder. The slap sent Alex stumbling back a step. A sudden thought seemed to strike Jake, and his face went pale. He whipped his head around, frantically looking toward the door. Alex was alarmed by his friend's expression. Jake, are you okay? Jake was sweating profusely, his voice barely a whisper. Where's your girlfriend? She's at the office. The moment the words left Alex's mouth, Jake was back to normal, color returning to his cheeks. It was as if the pale, dying man from a second ago had been an illusion. He grabbed the water bottle off the counter and chugged it down, patting his chest. Oh man, you scared the hell out of me. Alex was speechless. Sophie's not a monster. What are you so afraid of? Are you kidding me? Do you have any idea? Jake suddenly lowered his voice, looking around nervously before leaning in close. Mr. Fulton was suspended and is under investigation. Alex just said, oh, Sophia's handiwork. He had it coming. Jake smacked his own forehead. Right, you probably already knew everything. Actually, no, I didn't, until you just told me. Well, you must know about Lily Thompson then. Alex shook his head. Jake's eyes widened in horror. I heard she could get up to 10 years in prison. For a girl who just turned 18, that meant spending the best years of her youth locked away. It was a harsh sentence, but Jenna Miller had played with fire and gotten burned. Alex joked. Are you starting to feel sorry for her? What? Jake Ramirez pointed at his own nose, incredulous. Me? Feel sorry for her? No way. If they gave her 100 years, it'd be exactly what she deserves. But, hey, Alex, Jake stammered, if it wasn't for your girlfriend, they wouldn't have. Ugh. I'm just worried I'll do something wrong and your girlfriend will get the wrong idea. Like just now, when he'd playfully smacked Alex on the shoulder. It was the kind of thing friends did all the time. A shove here, a tap there, nothing to it. Even if you accidentally used too much force, no one would care. But if that fiercely protective heir saw it, would she think he was bullying Alex? After all, anyone with eyes could see how much she treasured him. You just said they got what they deserved. So what are you afraid of? Sophie is a reasonable person. I can promise you that. Alex sighed. Relax. She's really not that scary. Because you're my boy, I'll take your word for it, Jake said, then grinned sheepishly. Look, your girlfriend was so generous. We never even got to thank her in person. Doesn't that seem wrong? What does she like to eat? Take anything from the store. You can clean the place out if you want. Alex glanced at the half-empty water bottle in Jake's hand, then turned and grabbed a new one for himself. He twisted the cap and took a long drink. She doesn't need anything material. Jake nodded. Yeah, you're right. She's loaded. Did you say she went to her office? Is she already interning at her family's company? Alex just smiled, not bothering to explain. It wasn't an internship. She was running the whole show, making billion-dollar decisions from the boardroom. His Sophie was brilliant on a level that was almost inhuman. Alex's arrival was a get-out-of-jail-free card for Jake, who would have otherwise been stuck in the market all day. It had been a while since they'd hung out, so Jake shamelessly invited himself over to Alex's for dinner. He was dying for some of Emily's cooking. Alex agreed immediately. He'd been planning to show Jake the new place anyway, though he hadn't yet mentioned they'd moved. Mr. Ramirez, a pleasure to see you again. Please get in. Arthur Lowe, smiling warmly, held the car door open for Jake. Jake recognized him as the man who had taken him to buy the Ferrari. He was completely floored. Thanks, but I can get it myself. Suddenly, he remembered something, mumbled an apology, and dashed back into the market. Alex waited patiently by the door. As someone exited, lifting the heavy plastic flap, a draft of cold air escaped. Alex's mind drifted. What was Sophia doing at Harlan Corp right now? Reviewing documents? Leading a meeting? Was she getting frustrated dealing with all the people she couldn't stand? An image of her in the cemetery flashed in his mind, her lonely, helpless figure as she cried. It made his heart ache. What had the Harlans done to her in the past? From the fragment Sophia had let slip, Alex had pieced together a grim picture. First, her mother, Catherine, had been deeply unstable. She had forced her own impossible ambitions onto Sophia, goals that 99% of the world could never achieve. When Sophia inevitably fell short of those expectations, Catherine, in her profound disappointment, had faked her own death to disappear from the world, abandoning her own child to start a new life. Alex was a normal person. He couldn't begin to comprehend that kind of twisted logic. Second, Sophia was much younger than her two half-brothers, and the current matriarch of the Harlan family was their mother. The family patriarch, Richard Harlan, was supposedly devoted to his wife. Their marriage was considered a gold standard in their social circle, a perfect union. But if he was so devoted, Alex wondered with bitter irony, where did Sophia come from? Had Catherine's emotional turmoil, born from a doomed affair, created that pathological obsession with her daughter's success? A deadbeat father and a mentally unstable mother. Sophia was the innocent victim in it all. Lost in thought, he felt a hand on his shoulder. Assuming it was Jake, Alex turned and froze. The man offered a slight smile. "Hello." Just then, Jake came out of the market, holding 2 bottles of expensive, top-shelf liquor. He looked from Alex to the slickly dressed young man, confused. "Alex, who's this?" Alex's face went blank. He took half a step back, casually knocking the man's hand off his shoulder. "Sorry," he said coolly. "You have the wrong person." The guy was maybe 20, dressed head to toe in designer streetwear, with a trendy haircut and an air of entitled arrogance. He was, in short, a classic trust fund brat. The smile on the young man's face turned icy, his intentions clearly hostile. Jake tensed instantly. If this clown was looking for trouble with his friend, right in front of his family store, he was ready to throw down. The young man spoke. "Let me introduce myself. My name is Caleb Harlan." Alex shook his head, his expression unchanged. "Sorry, still don't know you." But his mind was racing. He'd had no contact with this guy in either of his lives. How had he found him? Sophia's people were fiercely loyal. They would never have revealed his existence to Caleb. That left only one possibility. Caleb had been tailing Sophia and discovered him. Unsure of Caleb's motives, but wanting nothing to do with him, Alex decided to play dumb. Caleb snorted. "It doesn't matter if you don't know me. You know that little brat, don't you?" Alex's brow furrowed. He didn't like the dismissive way Caleb said her name. Caleb suddenly leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I'm giving you a friendly warning. Stay away from her. Do you have any idea what she's like? She's a little fox born from a master manipulator. She knows how to wrap guys around her finger." Jake had heard enough. "Hey, what's your problem, man? Talk, don't crowd him like that." "Mr. Harlan," a polite but firm voice, laced with a clear warning, cut through the air, sending a shiver down everyone's spine. Arthur Lowe had appeared silently behind Caleb, his expression grim. Caleb flinched, turning slowly. He frowned at Lowe, then shot a surprised look back at Alex, and finally let out a derisive laugh. "Well, look at that. The little brat must really care about you. She even assigned you your own bodyguard." He knew who Lowe was. Alongside that annoyingly cheerful butler, Charles Harrington, Lowe was one of Sophia's most trusted aides. Placing Lowe by this kid's side proved how important he was to her. TSK. This was getting interesting. Had she actually fallen for this guy? Caleb's eyes raked over Alex, sizing him up. He was good-looking, he supposed. So this was her type? Alex ignored him completely and gestured to Jake. "Let's go." Jake shot Caleb one last wary glance before heading toward the car with Alex. He kept his voice low. "Alex, who was that guy? He had such a punchable face, my fists were itching." "Just some useless rich kid," Alex said. He thought for a moment, then added a warning. "He's not in our league. If you see him again, stay away. Don't get into it with him." Alex knew his friend too well. Jake was loyal but impulsive, and it often got him into trouble. "Does he have something to do with your girlfriend? I'm getting some serious high society drama vibes." "It's about what you'd expect," Alex said, without going into detail. He didn't know the full story himself, and besides, it was Sophia's private business with the Harlans. "So you're caught up in it now? What does that guy want? He was definitely up to no good. He's not going to do something to you, is he?" Jake didn't care about rich family feuds. That was just gossip for the masses. But if his best friend was in the middle of it, that was a different story. Honestly, Alex wasn't worried about himself. "Don't worry, I'll be fine." He nodded toward the car. "That's Mr. Lowe. He's my driver and my bodyguard." Jake muttered under his breath. Guess being the boyfriend of a billionaire isn't as easy as it looks. Arthur Lowe, ever the professional, hadn't followed them to open the doors this time. He didn't have Charles Harrington's unshakable composure, that ability to maintain a polite smile no matter the situation. Caleb sneered at him. "Hey, what are you so tense for? That kid is basically my brother-in-law. Shouldn't I, as her brother, be vetting him? Besides, I just want to talk to him. It's not like I did anything. Why the long face? Lowe ignored the bait. Mr. Harlan, has the matter from the other night been resolved? The mere mention of it made Caleb's face darken. He and his brother, Ethan, were twins, but Ethan had been groomed as the heir from birth. His every move was calculated, his every word measured. Years in the corporate world had given him a shrewdness far beyond his age. Caleb, by contrast, had lived a life of leisure. He was like an untrimmed tree, growing wild. You could call it free-spirited, or you could call it what it was, reckless and impulsive. It didn't take much to set him off. Lowe pressed his advantage. I heard the boy's mother demanded $5 million to settle. Have you managed to raise the funds, sir? If not, I can certainly report back to Miss Sophia and ask her to. Mrs. Zimmerman, blinded by greed, had dared to target Sophia. To secure the payoff, she'd threatened to jump from the tallest skyscraper built by a Harlan subsidiary, even writing a supposed suicide note in red marker. With an army of online gawkers ready to pounce, a story about the entitled second son of Harlan Corp bullying the common folk would have gone viral. In the past, the Harlans would have crushed a nuisance like Mrs. Zimmerman without a second thought. But things were different now. Sophia held the power, and her relationship with the family was complicated. She wouldn't lift a finger to save Caleb. In fact, she'd probably use the opportunity to throw him to the wolves, all in the name of protecting the company's image and demonstrating corporate integrity. It would be the perfect excuse to get rid of him for good. Everyone knew, though no one said it aloud, that Caleb's predicament was no accident. Sophia had orchestrated the whole thing. The boy Caleb had beaten up was the son of her mother's former nanny. But then again, if Caleb hadn't been so stupid as to walk right into the trap, would any of this have happened? After 2 years of a tense truce, the Harlans had learned Sophia's core principle. Don't start none, won't be none. But Caleb, even after taking a major loss, still hadn't learned his lesson. His face was a mask of fury. Shut up. Don't you stand there acting all high and mighty, you glorified attack dog. Don't think I don't know what's going on. That little bitch is just sitting back and laughing at me. Caleb Harlan. Lowe's face hardened, and a sudden, intimidating aura radiated from him. If you speak about Miss Sophia with such disrespect again, I will not be so courteous. Caleb was foolish and impulsive, but he wasn't a complete idiot. He knew when to fold. He was certain that if Lowe beat him up right here, right now, no one at home would take his side. Not when Lowe was one of her people. They were all walking on eggshells around that girl, and anyone associated with her. They had warned him, again and again, not to provoke her. He had kept his plan to follow her and find her boyfriend a secret, but now that Lowe had found him, the cat was out of the bag. He was in for another lecture when he got home. Still, he didn't regret it. Caleb snorted, then, ever the survivor, turned to leave. As he passed Alex's car, he called out in a snide, sing-song voice, "You know, I was actually here to make friends with you today, but if some people are too paranoid to allow it, then fine. Bye-bye. See you around." Alex didn't even look at him. Inside the Harlan Corp headquarters, in the chairman's office, Ethan Harlan sat perfectly straight, patiently waiting as the young woman across from him reviewed a document. When she finally signed her name with a flourish and slid it across the desk, he caught the corner of the file, hesitating. "Ms. Reed, about the other day, it was our fault. We didn't keep a close enough eye on Caleb, and he caused trouble for you." Sophia toyed with an elegant pen, her dark, unreadable eyes fixed on Ethan Harlan. They were like the calm surface of a deep pool, betraying nothing. Ethan's back was ramrod straight, a little too stiff. He hated to admit it, but in front of this girl 8 years his junior, he felt a definite sense of fear. "You're very respectful on the surface," Sophia said suddenly. "But deep down, you can't stand me, can you?" Ethan was speechless. Her bluntness left him with no idea how to respond. He struggled to maintain his composure, offering a weak, placating smile. "No. No. How is that possible?" Sophia's voice was light, almost lazy. "Harlan Corp was supposed to be yours, but now it's in my hands. How could you not have feelings about that?" It was rare for Sophia to discuss anything personal with him, anything beyond business. Even if her words stung, Ethan was willing to engage. "If you had stolen it from me when the company was thriving, I certainly would have had feelings. But you took over when it was on the brink of collapse." He met her gaze. "Without you, there would be no Harlan Corp today. You are better suited to be its heir than I am. I'm not as capable as you are. Everyone knows that. I can see." Sophia let out a short, humorless laugh. "You certainly know when to fold. Not like that idiot brother of yours." Ethan's lips tightened, but he said nothing. He, the former heir to Harlan Corp, had always been treated with deference and respect. Almost no one had ever spoken to him with such open contempt, except for the young woman before him. But in her presence, the entire Harlan family bowed and scraped. What did his personal pride matter? A half-smile played on Sophia's lips. "Has there ever been a time," she asked, her voice dropping, "when you wanted to just strangle me?" A jolt went through Ethan. He stared at her, the eyes behind his rimless glasses wide with shock. Why? Why would you say such a thing?" "Don't play dumb," Sophia said coldly. "If you told me that thought had never crossed your mind, I'd think you were the biggest hypocrite on the planet." Ethan remained silent, his mind reeling. "Who am I? I'm the little bastard your esteemed father had with another woman." At this, a flicker of genuine amusement crossed Sophia's face. "Not only did I shatter the perfect image you had of your father, but I also completely ruined your parents' relationship." She leaned back. "And now, this low-life bastard has struck it rich and is walking all over you. It must be infuriating, right?" Ethan's hands, resting on his knees, clenched in a tight fist before slowly relaxing. He forced a stiff smile and pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose. "The conflicts of the older generation shouldn't be carried over to ours, don't you think, Ms. Reed?" Sophia didn't answer. Ethan glanced at her cautiously. "When we were kids, Caleb was always getting into trouble. It hurt to see him punished by our parents, but sometimes I wished he'd been a sister instead. Sweet and gentle, well-behaved and adorable." As he spoke, an image formed in Ethan's mind. If Sophia weren't so cold, so unapproachable, she was actually more perfect than the sister he'd imagined. Unlike Caleb, who only caused trouble, she would have followed me around, calling me big brother in a soft, sweet voice. If she'd asked for the stars, I would have found a way to get them for her. "Do you know why I didn't crush that moron when he showed up at my door, looking for trouble the other day?" Sophia asked abruptly. "Why I only gave him a slap on the wrist?" Ethan looked at her, confused. Leaning back in her chair, Sophia answered lazily. "Because when that old man wanted to bring me back to be raised as a pawn in a marriage alliance for your family's benefit, you objected." Ethan froze. Whatever your reason for objecting, the fact is, it allowed me to escape his grasp. "So, thanks." Clutching the file, Ethan left the chairman's office in a daze. At the same time, Sophia's phone, lying on the desk, lit up. She read the incoming text message, and her face instantly clouded over. As a storm of thoughts raged in his head, Ethan felt a sudden cold draft rush past him. He looked up, bewildered, to see Sophia striding past him, her face a mask of fury. A knot of dread tightened in his stomach. Something was wrong. "Ms. Reed," he called out instinctively. She didn't seem to hear him, her slender figure quickly vanishing from sight. Ethan pulled out his phone and dialed as he hurried after her. No answer. He tried again. This time, someone picked up. "Is Caleb home?" The answer made the normally composed man want to smash his phone. "Caleb." Ethan gritted his teeth. He had told him to stay home and reflect on his actions, and the idiot had snuck out through a window. Now the staff had no idea where he was. Sophia's sudden departure had to be connected to him. "Caleb. Oh, Caleb, when will you ever grow up?" Charles Harrington glanced nervously at Sophia's stony expression. "Miss Sophia, I don't think you need to worry. Mr. Lowe is with Mr. Turner. He won't let anything happen to him." A murderous aura radiated from Sophia. "If he so much as touches my Alex, I will destroy him." Inside a luxury sedan, even more opulent than the Ferrari, Jake Ramirez clutched the 2 bottles of liquor he'd grabbed from the market and stared out the window. "Alex, this isn't the way to your house." "Yes, it is," Alex said calmly. "We moved." "What?" Jake exclaimed. "When did this happen? How come I didn't know? When did your family buy?" He trailed off, swallowing the rest of his words. Times had changed. At this point, if Alex showed up in a private jet, Jake shouldn't even be surprised. The guy's girlfriend could casually gift him a Ferrari. Was she really going to let her boyfriend's parents keep living in that tiny, rundown apartment? "We moved yesterday." Alex found the situation amusing. Most people's moves were chaotic affairs. For his parents, all Michael and Emily Turner had to do was show up. It was the easiest move in history. "See, we just moved in yesterday, and I'm already having you over. Aren't I a good friend?" "Totally. If you hadn't told me first, I would have been crushed." Jake looked down at the bottles in his lap and grumbled, "But you should have told me sooner. I didn't get you guys a housewarming gift. You were just saying we're brothers, and now you're talking about housewarming gifts? Don't be a stranger," Alex said. He'd been feeling like they were driving for a while, and a glance out the window confirmed his suspicion. This wasn't the way to his new house. He looked at the driver, puzzled. Just then, he saw a familiar car approaching. He checked the license plate, and his eyes widened. It was the car Sophia usually rode in. A coincidence? No, definitely not a coincidence. Arthur Lowe slowly pulled the car over to the side of the road. Jake, oblivious, hopped out and looked around, completely baffled. Alex, this is your new house. Alex was speechless. Lowe had driven them to a remote area on the north side of Seattle. They were parked next to a large patch of woods, in which stood a small building marked with a universal sign for a restroom. Your new house can't be out here. Jake sounded like he was having a meltdown on Alex's behalf. This is the middle of nowhere. Your old apartment was better than this. It's not here, Alex managed. The familiar car had now parked horizontally across the road, completely blocking it. The road was quiet, with very little traffic. Unfortunately, a taxi was just then driving toward them. Seeing the road maliciously blocked by a car that cost more than a house, the driver apparently decided the occupants weren't people you argued with. Without even getting out, he started to make a three-point turn to go back. But just as he started to reverse, a Bentley pulled up behind him, blocking his escape. Jake, still confused, finally realized something was off. Damn, he said, with a hint of sympathy. That poor taxi driver must have pissed someone off. Before Alex could say anything, Jake's eyes widened in realization. Oh crap, we're the ones being boxed in, aren't we? The taxi just got caught in the crossfire. Alex said nothing. The logic was sound. You don't use two top-tier luxury cars to trap a taxi. It's that guy from before, right? What's his problem? Why is he so persistent? Jake said, reaching for his own car door. Alex grabbed his arm. What are you doing? Jake's voice was grim. Looking for a weapon in the car. There are no weapons in the car. That didn't deter Jake. In this moment of perceived crisis, his ingenuity shone through. I'll grab those 2 bottles of liquor. We'll each take one. If he comes at us, we give him a good whack. Alex shook his head. No way. That stuff looks expensive. It'd be a shame to break it. Arthur Lowe, who had overheard their exchange, was at a loss for words. Mr. Turner, now is not the time for jokes. Then again, he had to admit, Mr. Turner had chosen a good friend. Jake quickly realized he'd been played, because he was now having the distinct honor of once again meeting Alex's billionaire girlfriend. Alex walked up to her. Sophie, what are you doing here? It was strange. Sophia was dressed simply, her face devoid of makeup, but the moment she appeared, it was as if the rest of the world faded into the background. Her presence seemed to soften the sharp, aggressive lines of her expression. They had only been apart for 2 hours, but the way she looked at him made Alex feel as if they'd been separated for an eternity. Her eyes traced a path from the top of his head down to his toes before returning to his face. The precious, careful way she looked at him made him feel like he was some priceless treasure. And in Sophia's eyes, he was. A priceless treasure to be cherished and protected for a lifetime. Someone was messing with my husband, Sophia said, her eyes narrowed, her voice like ice as she stared at the trapped taxi. I couldn't just let that slide. Alex followed her gaze, stunned. He'd been so busy talking to Jake that he'd barely noticed the taxi tailing them in the rearview mirror, assuming it was just going the same way. If Sophia hadn't shown up, he might never have realized. But how did she know he was being followed when she was all the way at her office? The answer was obvious. Arthur Lowe had noticed the tail, and knowing that anything concerning Alex was a top priority for his boss, he hadn't acted on his own. He'd reported it directly to Sophia. The busy CEO of a publicly traded company had immediately dropped everything and raced over, orchestrating this dramatic roadblock. Lowe unceremoniously yanked the taxi driver from his seat. The driver was a scrawny, sun-weathered man in his 50s. In front of the towering, imposing figure of Arthur Lowe, he looked like a helpless chick, unable to resist. He was trembling like a leaf in an autumn wind. Jake rubbed his nose, still trying to piece things together, but a new, profound understanding was dawning on him. He looked from his childhood friend to the formidable heiress by his side, and finally to their intertwined hands. The sheer intensity of their bond hit him like a physical blow. All he'd wanted was a free dinner at his friend's mom's house. Did he really deserve to be tortured like this? Sir, ma'am, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm just a taxi driver. A sharp screech of tires cut him off. A black Land Rover slammed to a halt behind the Rolls-Royce. A young man in a suit scrambled out, looking panicked. He saw that the taxi was empty except for the driver, and a quick scan of the area confirmed that the person he was looking for was absent. He visibly relaxed. Then he noticed Alex standing with his hand in Sophia's, and he froze, his eyes lingering on Alex's face for a few seconds too long. Alex felt a sense of weary resignation. Sophia had just told him to stay away from these 2 brothers, and here he was exposed in front of both of them. He met Ethan Harlan's gaze directly, offering a polite but distant smile. Ethan realized he was staring. He smiled back. "Hello, my name is Ethan Harlan. I'm the brother of the girl whose hand you're holding," he wanted to say, but he wouldn't dare say it in front of Sophia. In the past, he and his brother had refused to even acknowledge their half-sister, viewing her as a symbol of their family's shame. Now, somehow, being able to introduce himself as her brother felt like an unattainable luxury. Before Alex could offer a polite response, Sophia cut in, her brow furrowed with undisguised impatience. "What are you doing here?" Jake's eyes darted back and forth, from one person to the next. As an outsider, he adopted the proper etiquette of an audience member. He stood quietly to the side and soaked in the drama. A high society feud was unfolding right in front of him. He didn't quite understand what was going on, but he was getting the gist of it. And from what he could see, Alex's girlfriend was the one running the entire show. The man in the suit who had just rushed over looked every bit the part of a CEO from one of his mom's romance novels. The charisma, the expensive clothes. Yet, in front of Alex's girlfriend, his demeanor was so cautious it bordered on reverent. Jake was baffled. Before this, he just assumed Alex's girlfriend was incredibly rich. He figured her icy aura and powerful presence were propped up by an obscene amount of money. But now, he was realizing that wasn't the whole story. Ethan smiled warmly. "I saw you leave in such a hurry. I thought something might have happened, so." Alex caught the phrase "in such a hurry" and couldn't help but glance at Sophia. No one would dare try anything in broad daylight. There was no need for her to be this tense. Unlike Ethan's placating tone, Sophia's voice was so cold it shut down the conversation. "Were you afraid you'd be too late to collect your dear brother's body?" Ethan was speechless. He forced a dry laugh. "Ms. Reed, perhaps there's been a misunderstanding." Just as he spoke, the taxi driver, wilting under the pressure, confessed everything. His face was a mask of regret. "The gentleman just asked me to follow this car and report its location. He said his brother-in-law was inside. He said his sister was sweet and naive, and he was worried she was being taken advantage of, so he wanted to check the guy out for her. I was just trying to be helpful, so, you have to believe me, that's all I did. I couldn't have done anything else. I mean, look at me. Even if I wanted to, what could I do, right?" Arthur Lowe pulled out his phone, showed the driver a picture of Caleb Harlan, and asked grimly, "Was it him?" The driver nodded frantically. Yes, that's him." Ethan's face was a study in controlled fury. A vein throbbed in his forehead as he stared at Sophia's dark expression. "You were just being helpful? Do you even believe it yourself? Tell me, how much did he pay you?" The driver stammered. It wasn't much. Just $1,000. A young man had flagged him down, not for a ride, but to wire him $1,000 and ask him to tail another car. All he had to do was follow it and report where it ended up. Was there really such an easy way to make money in the world? At first, the driver thought he'd hit the jackpot, a fool with more money than sense. Now he realized he was the fool. Only 1,000? That's not even enough to toss at a beggar, Sophia sneered, glancing at Ethan's pained expression. It seems the second young master of the Harlan family has really fallen on hard times. Ethan didn't crack, but Jake, the lone audience member, did. Only $1,000? Was $1,000 a small amount? His parents worked there, butts off all day at their little market to make a fraction of that. Man, comparisons were brutal. The missing Caleb Harlan was lured out by a single phone call from the taxi driver. He had thought his plan was foolproof, never imagining it would be exposed so quickly. When he met his older brother's furious gaze, his guilt lasted all of 3 seconds before evaporating completely. He jutted out his chin. "I admit, the way I did it wasn't great, but I wasn't wrong. Brother, are you really that clueless? That little bitch is deliberately trying to tear our family apart for her own amusement." Crack! The sharp sound of a slap startled everyone. Ethan's right palm tingled as he pointed a trembling finger at Caleb. "Shut your mouth. How dare you speak to Miss Reed like that?" Caleb's head was turned to the side. He looked at his brother, who had always doted on him, in disbelief. "Bro, you hit me? For her?" A flicker of guilt crossed Ethan's eyes, but he hardened his resolve. "You will not be disrespectful to Miss Reed." Sophia placed her hand in Alex's palm, drawing a steadying energy from his touch. It allowed her to face the people she detested with a surprising sense of calm. "Mr. Harlan," she said, "if you act like this, you'll make me look like the villain who turned you two against each other. He wants to speak his mind, so let him. I'm suddenly very curious to hear what exactly he's so upset about." Feeling the hand holding hers tighten, Sophia gave Alex a subtle glance. Alex hadn't meant anything by it. He was just suddenly struck by a thought. Before she had grown into the powerhouse she was today, how did she handle situations like this? With no loving parents and her grandmother gone, did she feel utterly alone and helpless? His poor girl must have endured unimaginable torment to become the person she was today, someone who could look down on the world. Caleb had been harboring resentment towards Sophia for a long time. Now that he had an audience, he let it all out. Do you know what my monthly allowance used to be? $100,000. Cough, cough, cough. Someone, while sampling a $50 cup of single-origin coffee, had choked. Was it the expensive coffee that made him choke? No, it was the $100,000 monthly allowance. Jake waved his hand frantically while coughing. Don't mind me. Please continue. Alex hadn't expected the day to turn out like this. Before they'd arrived at the upscale cafe Sophia had chosen for this confrontation, he'd offered to give Jake the new address so he could head over first. Jake had righteously refused. How could he abandon his brother in a time of trouble? Okay, he admitted it. It was a rare chance to witness a high-society drama up close, no ticket required. As for his brother being caught in the middle of it, man, he had a billionaire girlfriend protecting him. He'd be fine. Caleb shot a glare at the innocent bystander before continuing his tirade. As soon as she took over, she cut my allowance to $20,000 a month. Jake didn't choke this time. He just thought silently, 20 grand a month isn't exactly chump change. His entire family's living expenses for a year probably didn't even add up to that. And now it's even worse. She cut it down to $1,000. $1,000 isn't even enough to eat on. She's trying to kill me. She started with me because I'm the easiest target. Caleb's voice rose with righteous indignation. After she gets rid of me, you're next, brother. And after she's forced all of us Harlans out, everything our family owns will legally belong to her. Brother, has she put some kind of spell on you? How can none of you see this obvious conspiracy? Ethan was silent. Sophia was silent. Alex and everyone else present were silent. Jake thought to himself, if my dad gave me $1,000 a month for an allowance, I'd be so happy I could jump to the moon. Of course, he understood it wasn't that simple. People lived in different worlds. This guy was a rich kid, used to a life of absurd luxury. Forcing him down to a normal person's standard of living probably felt like a death sentence. Sophia scoffed. You have the nerve to stand here and whine? Did your brother ever tell you that if the Harlan family had gone bankrupt 2 years ago, you wouldn't be getting $1,000 a month? You'd be lucky to get 100. Caleb faltered. At first, he hadn't believed it, but after digging around, he had grudgingly accepted the fact that Sophia had saved Harlan Corp. Besides, how old are you? If that's not enough money, go out and earn some yourself. Are you planning to live off your family forever? Being lectured by a girl he despised pushed Caleb over the edge. Even if I do plan on it, what about you? If you're so high and mighty, so contemptuous of men who don't earn their own money, then why are you keeping him? Alex blinked. He was supposed to be a spectator here. How did he suddenly become the center of attention? Sophia's brow furrowed in anger. She was worried Caleb's attack would wound Alex's pride. But when she saw that Alex was completely unfazed, she relaxed slightly. A deadly smile touched her lips. He's my husband. Haven't you ever heard of community property, you illiterate moron? Caleb was speechless again, his face turning beet red. He was furious. He couldn't win an argument with this girl. Ethan, on the other hand, looked at Alex with renewed surprise, his gaze far more scrutinizing than before. TCH, husband this, husband that. How old are you? Do you have a marriage license? Is it even legal? Caleb, refusing to be defeated, regrouped and launched another attack. Sophia had no interest in bickering with him. Her expression turned serious as she looked at the two brothers, her words a clear warning. He's my husband. From now on, you will be polite to him. If you cause him any trouble whatsoever, don't blame me for being ruthless. She stood up and started to lead Alex away. Caleb, still courting disaster, called after her. Sophia, do you really think you found true love? Aren't you afraid he's only with you for your money, not because he actually likes you? Alex sighed internally. He'd initially stayed by her side because he had no choice. But to outsiders, it looked like he was a gold digger who had deliberately pursued her. Sir, Alex said calmly, turning back. I don't think you know me, and you certainly don't know Sophie. She has countless amazing qualities. Her wealth is honestly the least interesting thing about her. Caleb made a gagging motion. You're even more full of it than I imagined. Sophia was fiercely protective. She treated Alex like a priceless treasure, and she couldn't stand to hear anyone slander or belittle him. Her fury exploded. In a flash, she spun around and slapped Caleb across the face. It happened so fast that even Ethan, who was standing right there about to reprimand his brother, didn't have time to react. Sophia might look delicate, but she could have handled 2 Calebs without breaking a sweat. And this slap, delivered with all her pent-up rage while he was completely off guard, sent him stumbling backward. "Caleb!" Ethan cried out in alarm. Caleb was stunned. He dazedly touched his face, and his hand came away, covered in blood. Sophia had given him a nosebleed. A murderous aura poured off Sophia. "You're asking for it." She looked ready to kill someone. Alex finally snapped out of his shock and grabbed her. "Sophie." His voice broke through her rage. She froze for a split second, and in that moment, he pulled her into his arms. "Sophie, calm down." Alex didn't care what happened to Caleb. He was worried his girl was about to lose control. The clean, familiar scent of him was a powerful anchor, and her anger began to subside. She shot a cold glance at the terrified Harlan brothers and snorted. "Ethan, now you know. The only reason I've tolerated this idiot for so long is out of respect for you. But he's pushed his luck one too many times, and he has officially exhausted all of my gratitude." A shiver of fear went down Ethan's spine. A terrible premonition washed over him. "I don't want to see him again. If he ever shows his face in front of me again, it won't be just a slap." Her voice dropped to a chilling whisper. "And I'm sure you don't want to see your brother in pieces, do you?" Cold sweat trickled down Ethan's forehead. He saw a wild, bloodthirsty desire in her eyes. His grandfather's words from last year, when he had gathered the family for a solemn warning, echoed in his ears. "Don't provoke Sophia. She is not someone our family can afford to cross." For their grandfather, a man who had weathered a lifetime of storms, to say something like that about anyone was unprecedented. Even those who had initially bristled at the idea of bowing to Sophia had realized the gravity of the situation and fallen in line. All except Caleb, who had been abroad at the time. Ethan's voice was strained. "Don't worry. I'll make sure to keep a close eye on him from now on." Before he could finish, Sophia scoffed and nestled against Alex, turning and walking away without another glance. Ethan's gaze, full of complex emotions, rested on Alex's back. He understood now. This boy, who had appeared out of nowhere, was her life. If they dared to touch him, she would genuinely take their lives. And she was more than capable of doing it, because she was Sophia Reed. As Alex led Sophia out, he realized something was wrong. He turned and saw Jake, standing frozen in place as if his feet were glued to the floor. "Jake, let's go." Jake snapped out of his trance. "Huh." He mechanically started walking. His eyes accidentally met Sophia's, and he flinched, quickly looking away. "Alex." "Aya." Alex sighed inwardly, taking pity on him. "You have something else to do? Then I'll have you over some other time." Jake could have cried with gratitude. His brother was the best. Seeing that he was scared out of his wits, Alex had given him the perfect excuse to escape. Granted a pardon, Jake bolted, practically leaving a trail of smoke behind him. Once he was around the corner and out of their sight, he let out a huge breath and wiped the sweat from his forehead. Holy crap, he thought. My bro's girlfriend is terrifying. You just wait, Sophia Reed. Caleb Harlan, will never forgive you for this. Caleb, I'm having someone pack your things. You're leaving tonight. Caleb's wailing stopped. He stared blankly at his brother. Where am I going? Ethan closed his eyes, looking utterly exhausted. Abroad. Somewhere she can't see you. Anywhere is fine. It took a moment for the words to sink in. Caleb's eyes widened in panic. Bro, you're exiling me? I just got back. I'm not going. Ethan opened his eyes, his gaze stern. Caleb, you're not a 3-year-old anymore. Why are you still so naive? I told you again and again not to provoke her. Why wouldn't you listen? Caleb stomped his foot in frustration. I refuse to believe one little girl can control everything. You're all afraid of her, but I'm not. I'm going to go fight her. Ethan's voice was quiet and tinged with weariness. Are you sure you're not afraid of her? It's okay, she's long gone. You can tell the truth. I won't laugh at you. Caleb fell silent. If he wasn't afraid, with his temper, he would have attacked Sophia the second she hit him. He wouldn't have waited until she left to start spewing empty threats. His bluff called, Caleb deflated. His legs gave out, and he sank onto a chair, burying his face in his hands. That crazy girl, he muttered, his voice trembling. She didn't even give a warning before she hit me. He was deeply ashamed, realizing for the first time just how much of a coward he was. He didn't want to admit it, but it was the truth. He was Caleb Harlan, the pampered second son, spoiled since birth. He feared nothing and no one. If he didn't like someone, he didn't waste words. He just acted. But in that moment, with Sophia radiating pure murderous intent, he had genuinely believed that if he kept pushing, she would kill him. That girl was a lunatic. Caleb was terrified. He hadn't dared to make a peep while she was there. But the moment she was gone, he had put on a brave face to save his pride. Unfortunately, his brother knew him too well. He buried his face in his hands, his voice thick with resentment. "Brother, are we just supposed to let her walk all over us like this? If this keeps up, the Harlan name might as well be Reed." "No, wait, it basically already is. And she's found herself a man. Did you see how she protects him? I just told the truth, and she beat me up like this. I'm telling you, if that kid asked for our entire family fortune, she handed over without a second thought. It's so weird. I see you all bowing down to her, and I thought she must be some kind of genius, some master strategist. Turns out, she's just completely lovesick." Ethan frowned, remaining silent for a moment. He pictured the young man's calm, clear eyes. His judgment was certainly better than Caleb's. He didn't think the boy was as worthless as Caleb claimed. In fact, he had a feeling the boy was probably a decent person. That girl's taste. It couldn't be that bad. Ethan's feelings were a complicated mess. When Caleb had insulted Sophia to her face, she had remained cool and composed, barely batting an eye. But the moment Caleb's attacks turned to the boy, questioning his motives for being with her, Sophia's violent reaction showed that she considered him her entire world. Who was this boy? Why was he so important to her? Was it really just because she was lovesick? For some reason, Ethan didn't think Sophia was the type to lose her head over a boy. Ethan had rarely been jealous of anyone in his life, but he felt a pang of envy for this unknown young man. Not everyone gets to be protected like they're the most precious thing in the world. It wasn't about gender. It was about being someone's absolute priority. Caleb muttered sourly. "Who is that kid anyway? Do you know him, bro? He sure is lucky, being treasured by that psycho like that. Humph, can't even say a word against him." He preened. "Why can't I, a handsome, charming, suave, debonair man, run into a lovesick billionaire like that?" Finding another lovesick girl on Sophia's level, young, beautiful, and terrifyingly capable, was probably impossible. And even if one existed, she likely wouldn't fall for them. The brothers fell into a heavy silence. After a long while, Caleb asked weakly, "Bro, do I really have to go?" Ethan's voice was laced with disappointment. "So now you're scared? What were you thinking before? Why didn't you listen?" I just couldn't accept it. And I was afraid she'd give the entire Harlan fortune to that kid. You saw how crazy she is about him." Caleb's voice trailed off, turning mournful. "If Dad hadn't had his accident, our family would never have ended up in the hands of a little girl." At the mention of their father, Ethan's expression darkened. A year ago, their father, Richard Harlan, had been in a sudden car accident. He had survived, but he had never woken up. Caleb's face grew grim. "Brother," he said in a low voice, "do you think Dad's accident had anything to do with her?" A jolt went through Ethan. "Don't say things you can't prove," he snapped instinctively. Caleb gritted his teeth. "So you're saying you suspected her too? But she's just too clever, and you haven't found any evidence yet?" "Caleb, I told you to stop with the baseless accusations. If she really was behind it, if she hurt our dad, I'll kill her." Crack! A five-fingered mark appeared on Caleb's other cheek. Ethan was breathing heavily. "Caleb, Harlan, I hope you understand that I didn't hit you to knock some sense into you. I hit you because your stupidity has become unbearable." Caleb stared at his beloved older brother with the eyes of an enemy. In the span of a few hours, his brother had hit him twice for that girl. Twice. He remembered a time in elementary school when he'd ripped up all of Ethan's homework the day before it was due, forcing his brother to stay up all night, redoing it. Ethan hadn't even yelled at him then. That girl's existence had not only shattered their parents' marriage, but was now driving a wedge between him and his brother. He hated her. The tingling in his palm helped Ethan calm down, but he didn't regret the slap. His voice was steady. "Think about it. If she was really behind the accident, do you think Grandpa would have just stood by and done nothing?" Caleb sneered. "Who knows? Grandpa is always going on about the big picture. He cares so much about appearances. As long as he can maintain the family's public image, what wouldn't he do? Do not disrespect Grandpa." The brothers glared at each other for a long time, until Caleb's bravado deflated like a popped balloon. He slumped back into the chair, his voice weak. "Brother, I don't want to leave home." When he was younger, he had hated his mother's nagging and wanted nothing more than to get as far away from home as possible. But now, whether because he'd had his fun or for some other reason, he was tired of drifting. Seeing his brother's defeated posture, Ethan's voice softened. "Just go away for a little while. When I can, I'll have someone bring you back." When Sophia's anger has cooled, he left unsaid. Caleb was silent. After a long moment, he looked up, his expression pleading. "Before I go, can I see Dad? Husband, was that guy awful? I'll make him disappear from your sight forever." A residual bloodlust still clung to Sophia. This version of her made Alex uneasy. Sophia was unlike any girl he had ever known. There was a chilling madness deep inside her, usually dormant. As long as he didn't cross her, she was stable, safe. But if you accidentally provoked her, she was dangerous. Alex didn't know whether to feel honored or terrified that he, somehow, had become the one line she would not let anyone cross. Honestly, Caleb was annoying, but he hadn't caused any real harm, just thrown around a few snide remarks. In life, you couldn't expect everyone to like you. He wasn't a $100 bill. He really didn't care. But Sophia's reaction had been so extreme, it had shaken him. The last time he'd seen her lose control like that was in his past life, when she had tricked him into returning to her mansion and he, realizing something was wrong, had tried to leave. He would never forget the look on her face, a mixture of disappointment, heartbreak, and despair. "Alex Turner," she had said to him as her bodyguards blocked his path, "I have never failed to get something I want, and I will never fail to keep someone I want to stay." But there was a difference. No matter how much Alex had resisted, she had only ever locked him up, restricting his freedom. She had never laid a hand on him. She couldn't bring herself to. He was the only one who received her mercy. Anyone else who crossed her was not so lucky. If he hadn't reacted quickly and grabbed her, that reckless Caleb Harlan would have gotten much more than just a slap. "Sophie, it's not worth getting so worked up over someone like him." The moment the words left his mouth, he realized his mistake. Anything involving him was a big deal to her. Otherwise, she wouldn't have dropped everything and come rushing over like the world was ending, even with Arthur Lowe by his side. She was too protective of him. A strange heaviness settled in Alex's chest. His importance to her was beyond anyone's imagination. In his past life, his stubborn refusal to accept her love had indirectly led to her early death. Not everyone gets to be cherished so completely by another person. He was overwhelmed. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her tight. All this girl wanted was his heart, and he was just an ordinary guy with only one heart to give. If she wanted it, it was hers. Sophia's heart swelled with a dizzying happiness. Was this real? Was this not just some beautiful dream? No, it couldn't be. The dreams she used to have of him were never this perfect. The great Miss Reed finally remembered the other person in the room. "All right, where were you and your friend headed?" Alex thought of Jake's pale, terrified face and had to suppress a laugh. He heard we moved and wanted to see the new place and maybe get a free meal. "Then why did he leave halfway through?" Sophia asked, surprised. Her world revolved so completely around Alex that she hadn't even noticed Jake's distress. Alex was at a loss. How was he supposed to answer that? He was so terrified by your murderous rage that he ran for the hills. He remembered he had something urgent to do. "He'll come by another time." "Oh." Sophia didn't press the issue. "He seems like a good friend." Alex smiled silently. "Of course he is. We've been friends our whole lives." He thought of Jake's fate in his past life and felt a pang of sadness. If it hadn't been for trying to get justice for him, Jake never would have. In this life, Jake, obsessed with gaming, had predictably bombed his SATs. Even when his mom made him kneel on pineapples, he refused to retake the year. He ended up at a community college, got knocked around by the real world for a few years, and by the time he smartened up, it was too late. But this time was different. Even if he wasn't cut out for academics, it didn't matter. This time, he had Alex, who would do everything in his power to help his friend achieve his ultimate dream, a life of leisure, fun, and blissful laziness. When they got out of the car, Alex realized Charles Harrington had brought them to the Ethel, the most luxurious five-star hotel in downtown Seattle. The Ethel was the city's crown jewel, a symbol of prestige with its opulent decor and world-class service. Its existence single-handedly elevated Seattle's status, making it the top choice for visiting dignitaries and celebrities. For many, a single night stay at the Ethel was a mark of success. Its annual profits were measured in the hundreds of millions. Confused, Alex followed Sophia inside. The hotel's general manager and his entire senior staff were lined up to greet them. Sophia gave him a cool nod, then turned to Alex, her expression instantly softening into that of a sweet, gentle girl next door. "Husband, from today on, this hotel is yours." Alex was speechless. He thought he had moved beyond base material desires, that he was immune to such temptations. But when a pie this big fell from the sky, it still left him dizzy. "Sophie, didn't we agree that what's yours is mine? Why are you drawing lines between us?" Alex congratulated himself on his quick thinking. It was the perfect way to avoid having this behemoth of a property transferred into his name while still making his ridiculously wealthy and impulsive girlfriend happy. A win-win. He didn't hate money, nor was he pretending to be above it all. It was just that this particular pie was so massive, he was afraid he'd choke on it. I'm very happy you feel that way, Sophia said, completely sidestepping his maneuver and clapping her hands together. Then it's settled. She wasn't asking for his opinion. No matter how soft and sweet she acted around him, at her core, she was still the iron-willed CEO who never took no for an answer. Alex was about to argue further when he saw Charles Harrington, standing behind Sophia, blinking at him frantically. He closed his mouth. Accepting her gifts, he realized, was one of the ways Sophia felt secure. For most people, receiving such a gift would prompt tears of gratitude. With Alex and Sophia, the roles were reversed. The moment Alex showed his calm acceptance, Sophia beamed. She turned to the hotel executives. From now on, he is the owner of the Ethel. I expect you to continue your work with the same diligence. He will take care of you. The Ethel was worth $500 million. Just like that, without lifting a finger, Alex Turner had become a multimillionaire. But that wasn't all. Sophia then gave him an entire office building, also in a prime downtown location, also worth a fortune. Both the Ethel and the office building were running smoothly. He didn't have to do a thing. He could just lie back and let the money roll in. Husband, from now on, the profits from the hotel and the building will be deposited directly into your private account. That way, you can use your own money for your daily expenses, and it won't be like you're living off me. But will that be enough? If not, there's a shopping mall over there that's also mine. I could. It's enough, Sophie. Alex was at a loss for words. A five-star hotel that raked in money day and night. A fully leased office tower. With his current lifestyle, he couldn't spend a year's profit in 10 lifetimes. And she was worried it wouldn't be enough? She was a money-showering fairy, but he wasn't a pot to catch it all in. Are you sure it's enough? She asked, still hesitant. If it's not, I'll ask you for more later, Alex said firmly. Sophia thought about it and decided that was acceptable. Now a man of immense wealth, Alex felt a strange unease. She had gone to such great lengths to ensure no one could call him a kept man. But didn't she realize that just handing him assets was another form of the same thing? He hesitated. Sophie, husband, be honest with me. Did what Caleb said today hurt your pride? Do you feel like you need to prove yourself? Alex was silent for a moment, then admitted, a little. But husband, I don't want you to work too hard. Plus, if Alex threw himself into a business, it would consume his time and energy. No, absolutely not. She wanted Alex to belong to her completely and utterly. Okay, I promise, Alex said with an indulgent smile. Just as he'd expected, she wouldn't be on board with him starting a business. And given the circumstances, he really didn't need to. With more money than he could ever spend, what was the point? This isn't me bragging, I swear. What's the ultimate shortcut in life? For Alex Turner, it was being Sophia Reed's kept man. Sophia noticed his subdued mood. Husband, why are you unhappy? Alex forced a smile. Sophie, sometimes I feel like it's not fair. Her eyes widened in confusion. What's not fair? Alex put his arm around her shoulder as they walked. You do everything you possibly can for me, and I'm so grateful. But when I look at what I can do for you, it's almost nothing. A smile lit up Sophia's face. Is that what's bothering you? Husband, I don't need you to do anything for me. I just need you to stay by my side, always. Alex shook his head. But Sophie, you have to understand. I'm a person. I have feelings alive. Are you saying I'm too controlling? Sophia stopped walking. She bit her lower lip, a flash of insecurity in her eyes that was quickly replaced by something cold and determined. The sweet, girl-next-door vibe vanished, replaced by an icy chill. Alex Turner, she said, her eyes locked on his, enunciating each word. This life, the next life, and every life after that, you can only ever be by my side. You belong completely to me. You had better to get any thought of leaving me out of your head for good. The oppressive atmosphere was suffocating. For a dizzying moment, Alex felt like he was back in his past life. His throat felt tight. He cleared it with a slight cough and forced a smile, trying to break the heavy, tense mood that made him want to run. Sophie, what are you talking about? You're amazing. Why would I ever want to leave you? Don't worry. Without your permission, I will never leave you. At his words, the icy mask on her face cracked, just a little. You'd better not, Charles Harrington thought silently from a respectful distance. Alex sighed. I just want to help you carry your burdens. If I can't even offer you emotional support, I feel useless. Sophia looked down, and when she looked up again, she offered him a sweet smile. I'm not unhappy. Seeing his expression, she amended, well, I'm very happy right now, especially when you say you'll never leave me. Alex sighed again. Fine. This was good enough. He should be content with the way things were. But he was greedy, not for material things, He wanted to understand her better, to ease her worries, to protect her with everything he had. But Sophia's message was clear. She didn't need that. Mr. Turner, I understand how you feel. Thank you for thinking of Miss Sophia's well-being, Charles Harrington said later that evening. A relationship goes both ways, Alex replied. Sophie always puts me first. It's only natural that I want to do something for her. Mr. Turner, don't you see? Your presence is what she wants most. Charles sighed. To be frank, since you've been here, her mood has changed dramatically. She's much more cheerful. Alex thought of the Sophia from his past life, consumed by depression, and a wave of guilt washed over him, sharp as 1,000 needles. Before I came, was she unhappy every day? It wasn't about being happy or unhappy. Charles shook his head. The world calls her a genius, but at the end of the day, she's just a kid. We all just want her to be happy. Alex fell silent. For some reason, Sophia didn't want him to know about her past. But if that was the case, why did she let little details slip out, almost accidentally? It made him piece them together in his mind, feeling his heart break for her over and over again. A sudden, chilling thought struck him. His eyes widened. Those heartbreaking details. They weren't accidental slips. She was deliberately feeding him small pieces of her past, earning his sympathy, his pity, making him care so much that he would never dream of leaving her. Alex gave a wry, helpless smile. What a cunning little girl. He clung to a sliver of hope. Maybe she had made it all up to keep him. She was, after all, willing to do anything to make him stay. He would rather she had lied to him. But he knew the chances of that were slim. Her strained relationship with her biological father's family was real. Her running away from home, while sick, was real. If she hadn't been starved for affection since childhood, how could she have latched onto him, a boy who had shown her a few days of kindness, as the single guiding light of her life? After dinner, someone from the Harlan family called to report that Caleb was leaving Seattle that night. They didn't specify his destination. Ethan, at the end of the day, only had one brother, and he couldn't bring himself to exile him overseas. Sophia had only demanded that Caleb stay out of her sight. As long as he kept his distance from the volatile heiress, he was technically fulfilling her command. When Charles Harrington came to report the news, Alex was in the study with Sophia, keeping her company while she worked. He was reading a book while she worked on her laptop. But with him there, Sophia found it hard to concentrate. Every few minutes, she would look up at him, draw a little reassurance from his presence, and then turn back to her work. Miss Sophia, the Harlans have booked a flight to New York for Caleb. Sophia looked up from her screen and snorted. I thought Ethan would ship him overseas. Brotherly love, I suppose. Alex knew that if Caleb hadn't randomly decided to attack him, he wouldn't be getting kicked out of town. Before he left, he made a stop at the Lakeside Wellness Center. Sophia let out a disinterested "oh," then frowned slightly. That old man is really hanging on. How's he not dead yet? Though her face was calm, the disgust in her eyes told Alex that this old man was no minor character. Sophia's gaze drifted to Alex's face. Alex pushed the glass of lemonade in front of him toward her. Have some water, Sophie. Suddenly, he remembered the first night he had stayed here. Sophia had personally handed him a glass of lemonade. To make her happy, he had downed it all in one go, and then fallen asleep. On his first night of his new life, he had slept like a rock. Looking back, it seemed unnatural. He wasn't the type to be so carefree. A night of tossing and turning would have made more sense. Sophia took a small sip, then looked at Alex, her expression hesitant. That man, he's the father of those two. Alex had guessed as much, so he wasn't surprised. The father of Ethan and Caleb was, of course, her biological father. What did surprise him was that she, who seemed to loathe the man, was willing to bring him up. Her next words shocked him even more. When I was little, that woman used to tell me every day how that old man had tricked her. She referred to her biological parents as that man and that woman, a perfect impartial detachment. Sophia sneered. She always played the victim, but I knew from the beginning that she was aware he was married. She wasn't innocent. Alex said nothing. He wanted to know her past, to cherish and protect her. But in reality, what could he do? The past was past. He couldn't turn back time and save her. All he could do was love her more fiercely now and in the future. The more he learned, the more his heart ached. And maybe, subconsciously, that was what he wanted, that ache, a constant reminder to be good to her. Forever. She thought her beauty could keep him, but the truth was he was just playing with her. He was never going to leave his wife and kids for her. Sophia spoke as if she were describing a stranger, summing up her missing, presumed dead mother in 3 words. A pathetic woman. Alex reached out and gently took her hand. Sophia fell silent, the faint, disdainful smile on her lips gone. Her hand was even colder than when he'd first touched it. Husband, I'm a bastard child. Does that make you look down on me, even a little? My origins are so shameful. I feel so insecure. Her expression clouded over, her eyes losing their light. She looked so pitiful. Alex's heart clenched. He squeezed her hand tighter. Sophie, it's not your fault. We don't get to choose to be born or who brings us into this world. But we do get to choose our future. No matter who you are, I love you. That's my choice. Sophia sniffled, her eyes welling up. Really, husband? She loved to ask for his reassurance, again and again. You won't leave me. You love me. You care about me. And so he told her, again and again, without a trace of annoyance. I won't leave you. I love you. I care about you. She was insecure, so he would give her all the security he possibly could. Sophia stared at him, the redness in her eyes deepening, as if tears were about to spill over. Alex braced himself to wipe them away, but in the next second, her lips curved into a smile, and she let out a small laugh. One moment on the verge of tears, the next, a radiant smile. The contrast made her seem mischievous and impossibly endearing. Just kidding, husband. Alex was completely bewildered. What were you kidding about, he asked. About feeling insecure? Or about the childhood stories she had just told him? She was an enigma. Like a child with a new toy, Sophia happily played with his fingers. His hands were large, his fingers long and elegant, just like him. She placed her own hand against his. As a girl with delicate skin, her hands were even more beautiful, perfect enough to be a hand model. Wow, your hand is so big, she marveled, before finally answering his question. You guess. She blinked, her voice taking on a teasing, meaningful tone. If I'm a liar, will you still love me? Alex froze. He was smart enough to hear the hidden question in her words. Oh, husband, you're so naive. Sophia sighed dramatically. It makes me worry about you. What will you do when you have to face the real world? There are so many bad people out there. But don't worry, I'm here. I won't let anyone bully you. She confessed. She said she had made it all up to get his sympathy, the hysterical mother, the irresponsible deadbeat dad. She claimed her mother was just a social climber who dreamed of marrying rich. When that dream fell apart, she hadn't been cruel to Sophia. After all, Sophia was Harlan blood. The deadbeat dad only had 2 sons, no precious daughter. Her mother was hoping he'd one day acknowledge her, and she could ride her daughter's coattails. And running away from home while sick that summer? Oh, that was just her being a rebellious kid, throwing a tantrum to scare her mother. Alex was silent for a long time. The ache in his chest grew sharper. If he had ever harbored a sliver of hope that she had fabricated a tragic past to keep him, he was now certain that she was lying in this very moment. Sophie, you're a terrible liar. You know that? She was suddenly recanting everything she'd ever told him. Was it because she finally felt his unwavering commitment and didn't want him to hurt for her anymore? A bitter taste filled Alex's mouth. Silly girl, as much as I want to believe you, I trust my own judgment more. What kind of irresponsible parent would let their sick child go missing for days? What about her mother faking her own death? If Sophia wanted him to believe this new story, she still had feelings for him, still hoped they could get back together, so she couldn't bring herself to hurt him. Sophia let out a mocking laugh. 2. He had something on her. If she made a move, he could drag her down to hell with him. And the last possibility is that she faked her death to go into hiding, and she's planning something big. She snorted. Some of the Harlan suspect I had something to do with the old man's car accident. Please, would I be that clumsy? If I made a move, I'd make sure he was dead. Alex was stunned. He had heard that the wife of the Harlan Corp chairman was ill and recuperating abroad, and that the chairman had flown overseas to be with her, cementing his public image as a devoted husband. It was a nice story for outsiders. But Alex knew better now. Sophia ruled the Harlan family. She despised her biological father. There was no way she would let him prance around playing the doting dad. She would have made him disappear, just like she had made the arrogant Caleb Harlan vanish from Seattle with a single sentence. It was no exaggeration to say she could move heaven and earth in this city. But he had never known that her father, Richard Harlan, had been in a car accident. Is he? Alex started to ask if he was dead, but then he remembered Charles Harrington's report about Caleb visiting his father and Sophia's comment about the old man not being dead yet. He's at the Lakeside Wellness Center. Been lying there for over a year, Sophia said, her tone surprisingly light. She felt nothing for her biological father, except maybe hatred. No, Alex realized, she probably didn't even feel hatred for him anymore. He wasn't worth it. Husband, you have no idea how shameless and pathetic that man is. He threw a credit card at that woman, trying to pay her and me off. Sophia would never forget the look on his face that day. Though she called him an old man, he wasn't really old. He was handsome, well-preserved by a life of luxury. He looked imposing and deeply annoyed. He had tossed a black card at the woman and coldly told her to stop making a scene. But then, as if reluctant to let go, he had grabbed her hand and spouted a bunch of stomach-turning platitudes. The gist was that if she behaved, he would give her anything she wanted, except for a title. The woman had scoffed and asked, "Right now, I want your life. Can you give me that?" The man's face had turned black. Then, whether to ease the tension or for some other reason, the woman had dragged Sophia out from where she was hiding and shoved her in front of him. "Here, your spawn." The moment the man saw Sophia, his face darkened. Getting rid of the woman was one thing, but a child who shared his blood was a much bigger problem. Sophia had stared at her toes, wishing the ground would swallow her whole. She had done nothing wrong, yet her very existence was an embarrassment. She felt a sharp gaze on her, and then a large hand gripped her chin, forcing her head up. A rebellious spark ignited in her, and she slapped his hand away, glaring at him. The man frowned, studying her for a long moment, then laughed. "You've raised her to be quite spirited," he said to the woman. "Just like you." Perhaps the phrase, "just like you," stung, since in the woman's eyes, Sophia was a useless failure. The woman snorted, threw the black card back at him, and said flatly, "Richard Harlan, do you think I was with you for your money? I only have one demand now. Take your spawn and go." Young Sophia had become a ball, kicked back and forth between the two people who should have been closest to her in the world. In the end, Richard Harlan left the black card and walked away, leaving two bodyguards behind. Ostensibly, they were there to protect the mother and child. In reality, they were there to watch the woman. That day, Sophia was forced to kneel at the woman's feet. The woman stared at her with such hatred. It was as if Sophia wasn't the daughter she had carried for 10 months, but a mortal enemy. "You disappoint me so much. Always a disappointment. Can't you do anything right just once? What did I tell you before he came? What did I say?" Kneeling was nothing new to Sophia. Going hungry was common. She was used to it, numb. She knelt there like an empty shell, ignoring the woman's shrieks. She even thought with a self-destructive bitterness that she could kneel there until she died. But she would never do what the woman had ordered. She would not hug that strange man and cry and call him daddy. She would rather die. Why did I give birth to such a useless thing? Sophia had heard that line 1,000 times, but this time it got a reaction. She snapped her head up and stared coldly at the woman. "Like I asked to be born by you." She had never fought back before. She had always been cautious, trying clumsily to please the woman. Perhaps that had made the woman think she had no will of her own. Her open defiance shocked the woman. That day, Sophia was ready to die. She didn't want to die. She had promised her grandmother she would live, but for once, she wanted to be selfish. She stood up and looked down at the woman lounging on a chaise. "You're a failure yourself. What right do you have to judge me?" The woman's face went pale. She raised her hand and slapped Sophia. It stung. Sophia didn't cry. She stared at the woman, her voice laced with scorn. "Look at you, pathetic and furious. All you can do is throw your weight around with me. You're a complete and utter failure. If I were that man, I wouldn't want you either." 3 days later, Richard Harlan came to take her away. Like an object, she was passed from the woman who had birthed her to a man who was a complete stranger. He took her to a secluded villa with 2 nannies. He told her kindly that he would find a school for her. With him was a boy who looked a lot like him. The boy watched her silently, his expression complex. The man told her to call him brother. She just stared at the boy, refusing to speak. Lumen sighed. "Such a good child ruined. Well, we have time. We can fix her." But Sophia was not an object to be fixed. Her previous obedience had been a facade, a mix of compromise and numbness. She was done trying to please people she didn't like, people who didn't like her. She began plotting her escape. Every second she spent there was torture. The nannies watched her every move. Who would have guessed that her chance to escape would come from that boy, Ethan Harlan? That night, she heard Ethan talking to his father. "Dad, if Mom finds out, she'll be heartbroken." "Ethan, you're a sensible boy. That's why I'm telling you about her." "I understand. Ethan, in families like ours, we often have to make sacrifices to get more. You, me, and her." Somehow, Sophia knew that last her was about her. "You seen the girl? She's even more beautiful than her mother. If we raise her well, we can bring her into the family later. We'll say she's an orphan we sponsored, our adopted daughter. Then we can find a suitable marriage for her. It will be a great help to the family business." Sophia was only 10, but she wasn't stupid. She understood the cold calculation in his words. Ethan's hesitant voice drifted through the door. "But Dad, isn't that unfair to her?" "Unfair?" Richard's voice was sharp. How can you be so naive? There's no such thing as absolute fairness in this world. There are people starving out there. She has food and shelter. All she's losing is the right to choose her husband. What's that in comparison? It's a duty that comes with being a Harlan. She should be honored. Miss. One of the nannies woke up and, seeing the empty bed, started searching. The commotion alerted the father and son, who came out to help. Thinking fast, Sophia hid in the decorative pond in the front yard. The frigid water numbed her body. She couldn't hold her breath for long. As she surfaced for a desperate gasp of air, the moonlight illuminated a pair of shocked eyes staring right at her. A week later, the woman's car was found in the water. The car was recovered, but her body never was. Some said it washed away. Others said it was eaten by fish. Who knew? Sophia didn't care. The last shred of feeling she had for that woman had vanished the moment she was handed over to Richard Harlan like a package. That night, Ethan Harlan saw her hiding in the water. Sophia's heart hammered her chest. She thought he would immediately call out to his father, who was busy scolding the careless nannies nearby. If she were caught, a punishment would be the least of her worries. Finding another chance to escape would be nearly impossible. But after a moment of shock, he simply pressed his lips together, gave her one last, deep look, and walked away. All these years later, Sophia still didn't fully understand his motive. Was it pity? Did he know she was alone in the world, cast off by her own mother? Or did he see her as a threat to his parents' marriage and hope she would run away and get sold into trafficking or starve to death on the streets? It didn't matter anymore. Whatever his reason, without Ethan, she never would have escaped. She had hidden in the back of a parked truck and, through a series of fortunate events, ended up in rural Washington, near Alex's grandmother's house, where she met the boy who would become the light of her life, the one who showed her a warmth she had long forgotten. Sophia recounted this history selectively, careful to spare Alex the worst of it, her voice deliberately flat and matter-of-fact. She could feel the change in his attitude toward her these days. She no longer needed to play the victim to win his sympathy. She just didn't want him to hurt for her. It was all in the past. But was it really? That evening, after showering, Alex was propped up in bed, texting Jake. "Bro, send me the new address. I'll come visit you and your parents tomorrow." Alex sent the address for the Laurels, and Jake's reply was instantaneous. "Holy crap. That's one of the most expensive gated communities in Seattle. The people who lived there were either rich or famous." Jake knew he could never afford it. The Ferrari was a fluke, a gift from Alex's girlfriend. "Gotta go. Going to bed." Alex stared at the message, surprised. "No way. You're going to bed this early? That's not like you." Jake was a classic night owl. For him, go to sleep before 1 a.m. was practically unheard of. Alex checked the time, 9:38 p.m. "Dude, are you feeling okay?" He remembered Jake's pale face earlier. He hadn't looked well. Alex had to suppress a laugh. Had Sophia's intense presence actually scared him sick? I'm fine. Nothing wrong." "Then why are you going to bed so early?" "It's weird." Jake hesitated for a long time before finally admitting the truth. "I'm afraid your girlfriend will get mad at me for taking up too much of your time." The day's events had completely reshaped Jake's perception of Sophia. He had once thought of her as a pampered princess, so high and mighty that she couldn't be bothered to look at mere mortals, which was why she seemed so cold. He was so wrong. That arrogant rich kid who had confronted Alex had been all bluster until she'd slapped him into silence. Jake had imagined some grand, dramatic family feud, but the reality was simpler. Sophia was at the top of the food chain. She might be sweet and gentle, but only for Alex. To everyone else, she was an immovable force. Jake was genuinely happy for his friend. Who wouldn't want a girlfriend who was completely devoted to them? But there was a downside. Jake realized he needed to keep a little distance. He had a strong feeling that if Sophia ever got the idea that he was competing for Alex's time, he would meet a swift and unpleasant end. Even if he was a guy. Though he had to admit, the way she'd slapped that rich kid was seriously cool. His best friend was in good hands. Alex could read between the lines. He smiled. Good friend. The bedroom was a comfortable temperature. Alex was propped up against the pillows, a movie playing on his phone. Suddenly, he felt a tickle on his cheek and reached up to find a damp strand of hair. He immediately turned off his phone and started to get up. Drying Sophia's hair was another one of his exclusive privileges, right up there with holding her while she slept. Sophia pressed him back down, her eyes on the phone by his side. "What were you watching? Something I'm not supposed to see?" Her tone was tinged with a slight pout. Her almost pathological possessiveness flared up, making her anxious, desperate to know. Alex calmly picked up his phone. He unlocked it with his thumbprint and was about to hand it to her when he paused. Sophia blinked, confused and a little hurt. Alex gently squeezed her cheek. Her skin was soft and smooth, with a satisfying bounce. It was an addictive sensation. He reluctantly pulled his hand away, noticing a faint pink mark where he'd pinched her. He felt a pang of guilt. He fiddled with the phone for a moment, then took Sophia's hand and pressed her index finger to the fingerprint scanner. She realized what he was doing and obediently complied. Once it was done, Alex handed her the phone. A smile touched Sophia's lips as she used her own fingerprint to unlock his phone. He had added her fingerprint. Now, she could look at his phone whenever she wanted. Of course, she could have done that anyway, but this was different. This was official permission, which she much preferred. As Alex expertly worked the hairdryer, Sophia's hair danced in the warm air. She lay on her stomach, her chin propped in her hands, watching the movie on his phone. Her bare feet kicked up and down in the air, a clear sign of her good mood. The hum of the dryer drowned out the movie sound. Halfway through, Alex stopped. Maybe you shouldn't watch this. Okay, Sophia said, pausing the movie. We can watch it together later. Alex finished drying her hair. When he was done, she rewound the movie to where he had been and held the phone up for him. It was only then that he realized she had misunderstood. She thought he was worried she'd missed the plot, so she had kindly rewound it for him. He stroked her hair. It was silky and still warm, smelling faintly of shampoo. It's a horror movie. You shouldn't watch it. I'm afraid you'll have nightmares. Sophia's eyes widened as if she'd heard something incredible. Husband, I had no idea you were such a scaredy cat. Alex was speechless. He admitted to being terrified of horror movies, but that was when he was a kid. Sophia wrapped her arms around his neck and pulled him closer, her expression serious. Don't be scared, husband. I'll be here with you. Her scent enveloped him, intoxicating him. It took all of his willpower to maintain his composure. Sophia was only 18. Some things were too soon, and he knew that despite her being the pursuer in their relationship, it was just her way of keeping him. She wasn't ready. With that thought, Alex's breathing steadied. Sophie, he asked, curious, are you not scared? No, it's all fake. What kind of shows do you usually like to watch? Sophia looked blank for a moment. I don't really know. I don't watch much TV. A pang of regret hit Alex. He had forgotten. Sophia never had a childhood. The more he learned about her, the more he marveled at her self-control. If he had lived her childhood, he would have gone insane. She had her flaws, of course, her possessiveness, her insecurities, her bossiness. But considering what she had been through, she was doing remarkably well. He couldn't say he would have turned out any better. He might have become a psychopath who hated the world. Halfway through the movie, Sophia had already figured out the identity of the final boss, who wasn't revealed until the end, and had even deduced their motive. Alex was in awe. Sophie, you're amazing. Of course I am, she said with a proud little smile and a tilt of her chin. How else could I be worthy of you? Alex realized that Sophia always spoke of him in the highest possible terms, but held herself to an impossibly strict standard. In this relationship, if anyone should feel insecure, it was him, not her. Alex handed her the phone, wrapped his arms around her, and nuzzled her neck. Are you busy tomorrow, Sophie? Her reply was so sweet, it made his heart ache. For my husband, I always have time. Then can we go to the hospital tomorrow? Husband, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well? Sophia sat up straight, her face a mask of alarm as she felt his forehead. I'm fine. Alex took her hand in his. He wanted to hold on to this girl for the rest of his life. You might not know this, but my mom had surgery a couple of years ago. They caught it just in time. Regular checkups are important. In his past life, Sophia's illness had been caused by years of depression. According to Charles, she had always been healthy. Her health only started to decline after he left. He was indirectly responsible for her death. He couldn't be sure if Charles had been telling the truth or just trying to make him feel guilty. But given how much she cared for him, it seemed plausible. If that was the case, then as long as he didn't leave her, she should be fine. But he couldn't take any chances. What if there was some underlying condition, a time bomb waiting to go off? Early detection was key. He considered her family now. He couldn't lose her. Sophia, who was always so composed and commanding, was completely docile with him. Okay, I'll have Charles make the appointments. You, your parents, and me. We'll all get checked out. The next day, they picked up Michael and Emily, and the four of them, yes, a family of four, went to the hospital. Waiting for the results, Alex's palms were sweaty. It felt just like when his mother had been wheeled into surgery, a helpless, agonizing feeling. He wasn't worried about himself or his parents. He knew from his past life that he and his father were fine, and his mother had recovered well. He was worried about Sophia. What if they found something? What would he do? Husband, you're sweating so much. Are you nervous? Don't worry. Your dad looks strong and healthy, And I'm sure your mom is fine too, Sophia said, pulling a handkerchief from somewhere and gently dabbing his forehead. Emily, sitting nearby, nudged her husband. Look at them, she whispered happily. They're so in love. I must have saved the world in a past life to get a daughter-in-law like Sophie. Michael just smiled. Sophia's gentle touch calmed Alex's frantic heart. He realized he was overreacting. In his past life, her illness had appeared years later. Even if there was something wrong now, it would be in its early stages and treatable. The minutes ticked by. Finally, the results were ready. For reports, all clear. The knot in Alex's chest finally loosened. Thank God. The tragedy of his past life would not be repeated. To celebrate, Alex took Sophia for a meal at the Laurels, the name of the villa where his parents now lived. Sophia had offered to hire staff for them, but they had politely declined. They might be living in a mansion, but they still had the mindset of people who had struggled, and they weren't used to being waited on. Besides, now that Michael was retired, they would be bored with nothing to do. Sophia, respecting their wishes, didn't insist. This time, Emily had prepared a feast. Oh, Sophie, dear, Emily said, we have a guest coming over in a little while. I hope you don't mind. Before Sophia could respond, Alex asked, what guest? He knew Sophia wasn't comfortable eating with strangers. He couldn't very well ask the guest to leave, but he didn't want to make Sophia uncomfortable either. The solution was simple. His parents could entertain the guest downstairs, and he would eat with Sophia upstairs. Oh, he's not a stranger. I think you've met him, Sophie. It's Jake Ramirez. He and Alex grew up together. They're best friends. Oh, him, Sophia said, her expression relaxing. I know him. It's fine, Emily. Alex had been worried that having a guest would make Sophia uneasy. Now, he was worried for Jake. He was about to text him and suggest he come over another time. But before he could, Jake's cheerful voice rang out from the doorway. Uncle Michael, Aunt Emily, long time no see. Your new house is amazing. Alex looked toward the door. The moment Jake's eyes met his, he skidded to a halt. Alex, you're here too? He blurted out. The words had barely left his mouth when he realized how stupid they sounded. This was Alex's home too. Of course he was here. A sense of dread washed over Jake. If Alex was here, did that mean his incredibly protective, billionaire girlfriend was also? Jake's gaze slowly, stiffly, moved across the room, and then, as he had feared, he saw the celestial-looking girl sitting next to Alex. He swallowed hard. Sophia's eyes lingered on him for a few seconds. She knew everything about Jake Ramirez, his family situation, his social circle. She made it her business to know everything and everyone connected to Alex. She had seen Jake a couple times before, but only in passing. She rarely gave any man other than Alex a second glance. Today was the first time she had really looked at her husband's best friend. The more she looked, the stranger it seemed. Was her husband's friend unwell? The house was comfortably air-conditioned, yet the boy was drenched in sweat, his face pale, his eyes wide and vacant. He looked like he was about to pass out. Even Michael noticed. Jake, are you not feeling well? You look terrible. Jake frantically wiped his forehead. No, I'm fine. Just hot from the walkover. Michael and Emily, consummate hosts, pulled him inside and sat him on the sofa, handing him an imported, ice-cold drink. As luck would have it, they sat him directly across from Sophia. Jake wanted to cry. Uncle, Annie, you're as kind as ever, but I really want to go home. He shot a desperate look at Alex. Alex wanted to help him, to make an excuse for him, but then he had another thought. This was an opportunity for Jake to see that Sophia wasn't as terrifying as he thought. One was his best friend, the other was his future wife. They were both important to him. They needed to be able to coexist peacefully. Otherwise, he'd be stuck in the middle. So, when Jake pleaded with his eyes, Alex pretended not to notice and turned away. Jake was aghast. Alex, what happened to our psychic connection? He sat there, clutching the cold drink, for a few anxious minutes, but then he slowly began to relax. He realized that after her initial glance, Alex's girlfriend had turned back to whisper with Alex, treating him as if he were invisible. For the first time in his life, Jake discovered how wonderful it felt to be ignored. He took a sip of his drink. Wow, this is actually really good. He downed half the bottle, feeling much better. As long as Sophia continued to ignore him, he would be fine. Soon, it was time for dinner. The first time Sophia had visited, Emily had made her lasagna, and she had seemed to love it. So Emily had frozen a portion specially for her, and today she served it as part of a huge spread of what she called simple home cooking. Looking at the feast on the table, Sophia realized that maybe she didn't love lasagna quite as much as she thought. It was just that Emily's cooking was incredible. Every single dish was delicious. Mrs. Helen, Her own cook had studied culinary arts and made exquisite meals, but for some reason, Emily's food tasted better. Maybe it was because this was the food Alex had grown up eating, or maybe it was because it tasted more like home. Alex, wearing disposable gloves, peeled a large prawn and placed it on the plate in front of Sophia. She didn't eat much and was a little too thin. He could feel her lightness whenever he held her, like holding a cat. He wanted to fatten her up a bit. He had discovered that she would eat almost anything he put on her plate. Mrs. Helen had even thanked him profusely yesterday, telling him that it was all thanks to him that Miss Sophia's appetite had improved so much. Sophia picked up the prawn with her chopsticks and popped it in her mouth, her eyes crinkling into a smile. A prawn peeled by her husband was, without a doubt, the most delicious thing in the world. She was used to holding Alex's hand. It gave her a sense of security, a tangible feeling that he was hers. But right now, his hands were busy peeling prawns, and even if they weren't, he needed them to eat. It felt strange, so she sought comfort elsewhere. Finally, she rested her left hand on Alex's right thigh.